Hello, everyone. Good evening. Welcome to Paranormal Roundtable. I'm your host, Josh Turner. Got a lot going on in my life right now, but we don't want to talk about that because I read the comment section.
Oh, they don't care about that.
It changed my life. Changed my life. People saying things, saying mean things, bad things. Changed my life. I'm done. People saying things like, he don't want a timestamp because he wants you to hear about the conflicts he's having with people. I'm confused by that. What conflicts are we having right now with people? I haven't had any in months. And the ones we did have was basically just me calling people out on their crap.
You need to just tell stories. I'm just here for the stories.
That's exactly right. Do you have your... Is your mic on this time? Last week it wasn't on. Anthony was talking away.
Well, somebody said Tony's mic wasn't on. And I was like, I checked Tony, and he was like, no, my mic's on. And I thought, well, that person doesn't know what the heck they're talking about.
No, he was right. It was off. I had to turn it on. As soon as I saw that comment, I turned it on, and then you said something about it later, but he was correct.
Yeah, but my mic was off, too. I didn't even know.
Oh, the whole time? Oh, yeah. Wow. I thought you turned it on at some point.
Well, anyways, I got a lot going on, folks. I didn't get a chance to do the mail offs this week because I'm busy. I got a lot going on, and I mean, to say I'm busy is really an understatement. Believe me, I am. I got legal things going on. It's just nothing to do with the show. Nothing to do with the show, even though people are writing books and misquoting me. That's something I got to look at, coming up in the future. I don't know, because I'm writing books, and I want to make sure that people read my books, not the other stuff that people are writing. I'm not even going to say their names, but there's a couple of them out there. And one guy wrote a book, and he had like a whole chapter about me. Completely wrong. Didn't even get the episode numbers right on any of the shows I've done or been on or anything. But, more power to him. Hopefully when my book is written, you guys can look at that as the definitive book about the subject. Okay, I want it to be that. Now, there's another book that's coming out from somebody who I'm fond of. He's a cool guy. I don't have a problem with him. They didn't interview me for that particular book, but I don't know anything about that book. I don't know if it's good or it's bad or whatever. Somebody was asking me about it, and a couple people, and asked me if I had anything to do with it. I said no. Now, whether or not they took information from my research or investigations, I have no idea, but I guess we'll see when the book is released or whatever. I'm not in no big hurry to fuss about anything. I don't care. I got my own battles to fight, and so this talk about me having beef with someone and who I'm fighting with, whatever, I'm not even fighting with anybody. And we haven't in months, and so y'all just keep on hammering away on that. And a lot of people that do that are trolls, and they just want to say things about us and say things about me and try to come at me sideways because maybe I went after or argued with their favorite podcaster, which if I did, that person, had it coming. But what I've learned, though, about a lot of people in this community is they like crap. They like bull crap. They like listening to people who are full of crap. I've noticed that. Like somebody gets on there and just has a guest that blabs away about bull crap and makes up stuff as they go along, which you can tell they're doing it, and you're sitting there going like, what the? And these people are diehard lover listeners of these people. And so you can't you can't fix stupid. If people are going to be stupid, they're going to be stupid. So I don't, whatever, dude. I don't even care, I had a phone conversation with Kenny Irish the other night. And before I go any further, I'm going to say Josh Turner, PRTpodcast.com, Patreon.com/PRT podcast. Patreon, we'll talk about that in a second. But I had a conversation with a good friend. He interviewed me for his new book. Now, what Kenny is doing is Kenny Irish is he's written 2 books, American Cryptids and International Cryptids. I wrote the foreword for International Cryptids. Okay, they're good books, and he's a good guy. He's going to be at the conference in September. But here's what I want to tell you: we were talking, and he gave me some. I gave him some advice. He gave me some advice. We went back and forth. We're about the same age, And we've lived the same amount of time. And so we started talking, and I like Kenny a lot. He's one of my favorite people in this field. He's a very good guy. And one of the things he said was that, dude, you could save an old lady from getting hit by a bus, and people will still find something wrong with it. They'll be like, oh, you only saved her because she was an old lady so you could get good press. Or you wanted to sue the bus company. You know, it's like there's no winning some of these people. And there are people who will literally watch every episode of my show, and I'm flattered by that. And then they will just lambaste me on every platform they can find. They will run to what they think are my enemies, which I really don't have any enemies anymore. They leave me alone, I leave them alone. I mean, a lot of them sued for peace. They were like, call off the dogs, because they had a bunch of stuff they weren't doing that wasn't correct. And I was calling them out, and they were asking me to stop. And so I did. They apologized and went on about their lives. And I accepted their apologies and said, okay, don't mess with me. I won't mess with you. That's why there hasn't been any beef. I wasn't asking them, hey, please stop, because I didn't do anything for them to be able to say. They were talking crap. The ones that did that had nothing. Nothing. I want nothing. So, but, you know, Kenny, you know, he's writing a book, and what he's doing is he's interviewing a lot of different people in this field. Like 30 people, I guess, so far. And I was flattered that he wanted to interview me about my personal life and about things, you know, that most people wouldn't know. And he was asking questions, and I just gave him the truth. I see Barton in the chat. Hey, Barton, what's going on? Larry Fisher, Dick Richards, Bernard. What's going on, guys?
It's
Bernard
all
Fox.
truth.
Sugar Britches, they're here to moderate. Thank you, folks, for showing up to Paranormal Roundtable. Had a rough day. Just had a really rough day. People not doing what they're supposed to be doing, and they'd rather just than do the easy thing and do the right easy thing. They would rather do the wrong bad thing. And that's what I'm dealing with right now in my personal life. Nobody in my circle, none of my friends are turning on me, anything like that. No, it's just people not doing what they're supposed to be doing. So, it's a shame. Could have been so easy, but they had to. They want a war. Some people are only comfortable if they're at war. I'm not one of them. I'd like peace, but I'm prepared for it if that's what they want, you know. When you ask somebody to do the right thing and they absolutely would just rather pick up their battle axe and come at you. And it is one of the many problems with the Karens of the world. This is very much a Karen trying to flex. And go ahead. Win your small battles because you're going to lose the war. Well, that's what happens. Good still has a place in this world. A lot of people say, oh, there's no more good. This is just evil's taking over. It's ruling everything. I disagree. I think that evil wins because we allow it. And then evil wins, and then we call it good, and we write history about it. That's happened quite a bit. I'm not going to get into it, but in every movie you watch and every television show you watch, they lie. They lie. I'm not going to get into the names of these people because they'll try to sue me. Okay? But they lie. They rewrite history to fit an agenda that doesn't exist, that never existed, and they call it truth, and it's biblical. Beware of those who call good evil and evil good. It's the oldest trick in the book. So when you ask someone, when you call them to the floor and say, "Can you do what's right?" they would rather turn and do underhanded evil and do darkness and then claim you're in the wrong. Because for whatever reason, it may cost them some money or whatever to do the right thing. I would rather spend money, lose money, and do the right thing than to gain from doing bad. That's my stance on it. It's always been my stance. I have not compromised that stance. But there's a lot of people out there who are getting over on you and trying to get over on me, and buck stops here. because you're not going to win with me on that. That's not going to happen. And lawyers, unfortunately, have to get involved. And thank God I feel comfortable. I have a lawyer that works right next door to me. He's a real estate attorney. He's a good guy. And, God hopefully will move us in the right direction, and the lawyers can deal with all this. It's unfortunate that we have to go through all this, especially we're trying to do the show. We're trying to run our business, trying to live our lives, Everybody's got a part that they play. I mean, Anthony, he's up to his neck in work with me. Tony, he's doing what he does, which is being competent. Look, everybody's got their own role that they play in the group, So, life is not easy. So right now we're a little bit behind. Now, I will get to the Patreon. A lot of people have jumped from the $10 or $20 tier to the $30 tier. What that means is that, like I said, this right here, the 10 people are going to get this right here, which is signed by my friends Ken Gerhard and Lyle Blackburn. Okay. We have a limited number of those. I think there's only like 20 in existence, actually 25 maybe, from what I saw them signing some. I think they had a handful of them over at Jefferson. But what that means is 10 of you will get that. And I've already spoken to several of you. I think there's 2 more slots left, or 3. So if you move over to the $30 tier now, thank you for that donation, Sugar Butchers. We appreciate it. It's greatly, greatly appreciated and needed. I'm not going to lie to you. But you will get a swag bag. Now, if you just jump in feet first, you've never done, you're not upgrading from anything, or you weren't a $10 tier or a $20 tier, you will get 2 autographed books, and then you will get if you're one of the next 3 on the American Monster Tour, you will get that DVD. It's autographed. And DVDs everybody's like, oh, DVDs are passe, whatever. Well, that one's autographed. It's not for, you can play it, but it's really for having. But it works. And that, folks, is the $30 tier. And you will get a few other things. We throw in stickers and other things like that, keychain. We had koozies. We're all out. And you get a T-shirt. We're done with the giveaways for the hoodies, right?
Yeah.
That's pretty much it. And it's still cold up north? I don't know.
Probably.
Yeah, we're hoodied out for right now. We're just trying to move toward giving away other stuff. We're almost in May, but I guess we could do one more hoodie giveaway, right?
Yeah. I mean, if people want them, yeah.
If you want a hoodie, tell me now. We can do the Wheel of Destiny and get it over with, and then we can move on to the story time and get the guest on here. Because as soon as the guest leaves, I'm going to tell a story that's going to whet your appetite for what's coming up on Tuesday's offering. And we talked last night, right, Anthony, about possibly doing something.
Yeah.
Tell them what we talked about. We don't know yet. This isn't set in stone, but we'd like to give you a little, and if I get enough feedback on it, saying, hey, this is what I want to do, I might do it. Go ahead, tell them.
Well, so as it stands right now, we are doing a live stream on Friday nights, and then on Tuesday nights, you get the hour-long pre-recorded episode. Now, we were thinking about doing an additional show, which would be like an hour-long live stream on Sunday nights, because Sunday night is typically when most of you are at home and just not, it's your downtime.
It's a television night.
Yeah, it's prime time, TV, streaming, whatever, YouTube, media night, call it that. So I think it would, if that's something that y'all think y'all would tune in for, like if y'all could, if y'all would be willing to set aside some time on your Sunday nights for a shorter version of the live stream that we do tonight, like it's not going to be a 2.5 hour live stream like we're doing on Friday nights. But on Sunday,
it may be an hour, not to interrupt, but let me speed it along here. We may do an hour-long live stream or just drop a pre-record. And now what we talked about was maybe doing 1 week doing a live, right? And then the next
1 week doing a live and 1 week dropping like a pre-recorded episode.
To give you more content.
Yeah, but the pre-record might be even shorter than an hour. Like
we don't know yet.
Yeah. It's just we're just kicking around some ideas on how to offer y'all some more content, and I don't know, maybe just put out something that's just a little bit kind of shorter and easier to digest. You know.
The reason being is because I'm swamped with stories. I am overwhelmed with stories, but don't stop sending them, because I used to say 1 in like 5 or 6. I'd say 1 in 3 now are show worthy. I mean, there's some good stories coming in. People are willing to come to me. The one lady, she sent me a story, and she said, the reason I want you to have this story, and Anthony, I showed him, this is why we do it. Because she's like, nobody else wants to take my story. They think I'm full of it, and I'm not. This isn't real. You FaceTime this person. This is a real person. She's 69 years old. Or I'm sorry, 67 years old. She's carried this with her since she was 33. And nobody was willing to listen to her, even her own parents. Until it began to happen to her brother. And then... And I'm not going to get into it. It's a story that I'll tell later on. But the point is that there are people out there who want their story told. And a lot of these people were being very biased. They're like, oh, you have a Dogman story, but you also have ghosts. Sorry, man. Can't do that. Got to have one or the other. Ghosts can't... Everybody knows by the laws of some made-up physics that ghosts can't exist in the same parameter as dog feet and big man.
Well, everybody knows that. It's a separate veil for that.
That's completely different realms. It's like there's a separate hell for aliens and separate hell for us. Now, heaven, we're all together hanging out. But in hell, you are with humans, human beings. And then there's another hell for different types of aliens. That's what I've been told by the Encyclopedia of BS. Can't verify that, like most things. What's going on, Loki? We have a guest in the studio today.
Oh, yeah.
You want to introduce?
Yeah, hang on. Let me, we need to get him another mic.
Oh, that's right. We don't have it. We have to get him a mic.
Yeah. I'm going to go get the mic.
Y'all share the mic. You can go around behind me if you need to. You can go around behind me because the camera's on that. But they're okay. All right. Keep the camera on. So I want to say here, thank you, Brave, for that donation. The Lord says, rejoice in your trials in life because it brings you closer to him. Draw near to the Lord and never cease praying. That's correct. I pray all day. I prayed today all day. It was just, I felt like I got messed with, and they're going to mess with you. It's going to happen. I'm used to it. I've been getting messed with my whole life. It's not like something new. That's because I stand up. People tell me, well, I just try to avoid conflict. I stay out of drama and blah, blah, blah. You know why? Because you're able to you don't have to stand up. And some people, they just like to fly under the radar and not get involved in anything. But when you do that, you're allowing certain things to go by you, which I feel like it's kind of my job to put a stop to a lot of it. I mean, because otherwise I don't think God would have allowed me to be where I'm at if I just was a passive person and just said, hey, I'm going to let these people get away with hoodwinking people. I'm going to let these people get away with running over people and being ne'er-do-wells. And that's an old English saying there, but that's what they are. And I don't agree with it. I'm not going to let my listeners be messed with and cheated and lied to and hoodwinked. And I'm not going to let my people be treated this way. So it's just the way it is. Here is what I got going on tonight. We have a guest coming on. She'll come on shortly. And then after that, I'm going to tell you a story or two in regards to what's coming up on Tuesday. On Tuesday, we're not 100%, about 80, 90% sure what we're going to do. We're going to take a vote here in the studio about the next episode amongst us here. We have two things going on. One, I've been working on for a while, and I've done a deep dive on water cryptids. Now, I don't mean so much as like, dinosaurs swimming in the ocean or giant sharks. I mean, literally in humanoids. Let's put it that way. Barton Nunley's term in humanoids in the ocean. documenting things from the Caspian Sea and the Black Sea and in lakes. And just going, I did a deep dive. It's a very weird and interesting subject, and I don't want to get into it right now because we don't have time, but it is very interesting. What will probably happen is I will end up doing that one the following Tuesday, and we'll talk about that one. We'll tell one of the stories on next Friday's show. And as for right now, this week, we are looking at doing tales of the pale crawler. A lot of people like to call it the rake, but when we call it the rake, we get literally raked over the coals because that's creepypasta. Well, it doesn't matter what you call it. You can call it Sir Bubblicious Fisheye of Worcestershire. It doesn't matter what it's a creature that exists, and people see it all the time. And in fact, all that noise is we're setting up a microphone for Loki here. Loki joined us in the studio on a much needed day off here. How was your week? You have fun?
Oh yeah, I slept every day.
Got recharged?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, talking to the mic there.
I gotta talk directly into.
Yeah, so you've been on the show before.
Oh yeah.
So what Loki is off, okay? And last time I saw you in face-to-face, we've talked on the phone multiple times, but last time I saw you, I was being grabbed by something at your job site in my truck.
Yeah.
I'm not joking about that, folks. That sounds crazy, but it made me jump right out of the truck. It was pretty unnerving, to say the least. I'm not a fan of that particular site. I don't think I'll ever work that site by myself there. After what happened. Something did actually grab my thigh in 2 different spots and squeeze, and it was very weird. And it wasn't you, because
I was in front of you.
You were on the other side. You were talking to Anthony on that side, and Tony was on that side too. And Anthony, there was nobody on my side, but I kept hearing noise on my side, and then something touched me. That's when I draw the line right there. I don't. Nope. Act up all you want. You're not going to get a response, but that's when you're really going to have a problem. Now, folks, we still have tickets for the conference. Tickets sold really good out the gate, and then they just kind of slowed down. So I'm just being really honest. And I'm sitting here going like, what's going on, man? Are we going to have this conference? Are we going to do this or what? Like, we sold a bunch of them real quick, and then we just kind of, the sales have slowed to a trickle. I'm hoping that after the first, when people start getting paid, that they're going to commit and come to the conference. I really want to meet you guys. I really want to see as many of you as possible. I want to meet you, and I want to give you stuff. I want to give you a good time. I want to give you stuff, do giveaways, and there's going to be door prizes. There's going to be all kinds of things. We're going to talk to the audience. It's going to be interactive. We're going to do interactive things with the audience, asking questions, letting people talk. We're going to have a bunch of speakers that are going to be on there. You got the list. Put the link up there, please, to the conference. Get your tickets, folks. Let's get this going. I want to make sure that we're not inviting all of these speakers just to talk to a few people. This isn't, because it's going to happen regardless. Okay. But I want PRT to put their best foot forward, and you are my best foot. So please, get your tickets, come to the conference, and let's do this. Let's show all these speakers some love that have so graciously agreed to come and speak, and didn't really ask for a whole lot. A lot of them, Of course, we got to pay for hotels, and we got to book the place, which is super expensive. I'm not going to lie. And then the catering, we got to pay for that, and a lot of other things too. And I've invested an enormous amount of money in merchandising. So you guys will have, and there's going to be so many vendors and so many people there speaking. If it's the one thing you do all year, come to this conference. You will not be disappointed. Last year was amazing. It was awesome. Everybody had a good time. Everybody left just really fulfilled. I still get messages about the conference from last year. I'm hoping everybody from last year will come back, because this year is going to be different. Everybody's doing a different presentation. I'm going to be talking, of course, in between the speakers and whatever. I'm not going to get up there and hog up all the time, because they need to be able to speak. And some people were saying, well, if you're not going to speak, and I said, well, I am, but I'm not going to get up there and do a whole presentation. I think y'all have all heard enough from me. You hear me every week. It's not, it's not something you gotta. And somebody says, I can't afford to take off work to attend. Man, I wish you could. It's just Labor Day weekend. Are you working on the weekends? I wish you could. Rogue Status says, I don't want anything from you. Just shake your hand. I'd love to shake your hand. I love to sit there and interact with my listeners and introduce you to all my friends that are going to be speaking there. People that are not, these are not just guest speakers. I look at each and every one of these individuals. I've had long conversations with them. I like all these people. They are my friends. I look at these people as my friends. Not one of these people I'm looking at going, I don't know about that guy, And there's some people that are going to be there, like Brian Bowden and Tex from Texas Front Porch, They're going to be there, and they're not on the deal there because they're going to be on the panel, but they're going to be there too. There's going to be a lot of people that are going to show up, and I'm sure, and they're going to want to speak. And if they want to speak, they can, because we're going to have so much time to do that. It's going to be a 2-day event. And then they're right next door, there's a water park. So on Monday, when you're done with whatever with us, go to the water park if you want. I mean, if you're so inclined. There's like 4 hotels right there. Michelle Collins, okay, she says, I just upgraded a $30 tier to show my support. You guys are amazing. Thank you. Okay, what you just did, that will get you the DVD. And if you were already, have already gotten a swag bag before, then you'll get another book, and it'll be of your choice. Tell me which author you want, and I'll send it to you.
Well, Michelle's not the only one, actually.
Well, yeah, but what I'm saying is this is an example.
Well, I was just going to say.
Pay attention, do you?
I was just going to say that Dorothy and Asdal Gould I saw on there.
I understand that, but I'm using her as an example. No offense to Dorothy and yeah. So, no offense to Dorothy. I love these people. I love you all. Okay? But I don't know what's going on with that. Text him, find out. One of my business partners. Can't get away from it. I do my show on Friday. Text him. So somebody said, would you ever consider a second conference or a meet and greet? This is our second conference. And I did talk to Ken about this, and I'm going to be very honest with you. Okay, this is a lot of work and a lot of stress. I don't know that we're going to do another one after this, because I may have to take off a year to try to just to build the show and take care of my business. This has been a very stressful thing for me, doing this conference, because, like I said, ticket sales were doing really good, and they just slowed down to a crawl. And now I'm going like, I'm starting to rethink this. Should I do this? I don't know. And see, somebody says maybe sell tickets for conference live stream. See, that's the thing. If I do that, then people don't come to the conference. I didn't do that last year. I could have, and a lot of people, I could have made a lot more money on it. But you don't get people to come and meet you in person, and that's what I want. So I'm not going to do that. I was suggested that when I was on Jessica's show last week, and I just, I don't want to do that. Hey, Clever Conquistador, I haven't seen you in a while. I don't know exactly, hey, Shade Viking, Rogue Status, everybody here tonight. I don't know how to say your name, Roger Davis. Oh, man. I don't know. If people really want to come, they'll come, and I'm going to quit stressing about it, because that's not something that I can control. If you want to come, you come. Clever Conquistador says, I caught that expanded perspectives. That show was great. Well, yeah, those guys are good. I enjoyed doing that show. I've known those guys for a while, but I hadn't been able to connect with them like we did, and it was nice. We shot the breeze for a while before the show and then after. They're really good guys and very accommodating. They're going to be at the conference too. So that's another thing. They're going to be there. I don't know that they'll speak, but they're going to be represented. There's going to be a lot of people there with their banners and everything. So anyways, folks, I'm going to get started. I'm going to call my guest, and I'm going to get this going here. Anything else we need? This show will be dropped on a link to the Paranormal Roundtable. Give me my phone, please. My Paranormal Roundtable group on Facebook. We have a group. We had a winner. who I chose for last, Cameron Best. Cameron Best won the prize for the show that was dropped for Tuesday's show. Tuesday's show did really well. Can't remember what it was now. It was called Shadow Dog Encounters. I wanted to call it Encounters with the Black Dog, but Anthony chose Shadow Dog Encounters because it sounded corny and goofy, and so he made that call. I can't control what kind of corny, goofy stuff he does. I look at the name and I'm like, what is that, dude? Left a bad after that. You eat something and it's sugarless, and you're like, what is this? I don't eat a lot of sugar, so I've had to get used to eating a lot of sugarless stuff, and it just leaves a bad taste in your mouth. It's like you'd rather just eat bok choy without any sauce. I mean, you might as well. I don't know. I didn't choose the name, okay? It's Shadow Dog. I don't know. It is what it is. It's
Black Dog.
The Black Dog has a long and storied history through. Shadow Dog doesn't.
It's for the better. It's better for the algorithm, though.
Oh, okay.
Is it really though?
Yeah, because you have shadow people and the Hat Man, which are things that.
And so a lot creepier than a dog being shadow.
Well, Craig, so you believe that people are looking up shadow more than they are dog?
More than they are Black Dog, yeah.
I'm pretty sure the entire algorithm.
It's on that keychain down there.
He's got it.
They're more than likely to type in something much along the lines of shadow.
I disagree, but that's fine. All right, so anyways, folks, we're going to call our guests, and we're going to get started here. We're not going to argue about the name of this show. That should have been Black Dog, but that's fine. Whatever. I think Black Dog Encounters would have been... But that's what it is. What it is. We are where we are. Okay. So next week's show, I don't know what it's going to be called, but I'm 90% sure we're going to call it. We're going to talk about the Pale Crawler. We have a bunch of stories about it, and we're going to tell one or two before the show's over. But first, let's get started with our guest. She's got a lot to talk about, and we're going to bring her on. If I can get to it. Oh, shit. Thank you. Oh, back.
Oh, these?
Yeah, so you can hear what that.
Oh.
Hey, Jen?
Yeah.
Okay, hey, it's Josh Turner from Paranormal
Hi,
Roundtable.
Josh.
Hey, so you were expecting my call, right? You weren't like, doing the dishes or anything like
No, I was sitting here waiting for you.
Okay, good. All right, because I was like, I thought we'd connected earlier, but I had such a hectic and rough day. So how are you doing?
Very good. Are we doing video?
No video. No, we're just doing audio.
Really?
Yeah.
Put my lipstick on and everything.
Wow, that's unfortunate. But you know what? After we're done, you can still go out and go to the club.
You're right.
Yeah.
I'm too old for that, though.
No, you're never too old to go out and make a fool of yourself. Trust me. I've done it many times.
Let me rephrase. I'm too smart for that.
Okay, all right. I'm not. I drag my wife along, and she's like, "Oh my gosh," I embarrass everybody, and I enjoy it.
All right.
So I make everybody cringe, as they say. So Jen, tell us about yourself: who you are, what you do, and what you know.
All right. Well, I'm Jen Cruz. I'm team leader of the She Squatchers, the first all-female Bigfoot research team out of the Midwest. We started in 2015. And that was because I had a show that I was interviewing Lauren Coleman, the cryptozoologist who has the International Cryptozoology Museum in the state of Maine. And I honestly didn't know much about Bigfoot at the time, but I recognize a good interview when I see one. And he sat down with me face to face, and we did an hour show. And he educated me on Bigfoot in the state of Minnesota, which is my home state, assuring me that there indeed was Bigfoot there. And I was like, I grew up in the woods I was always in the woods. I never saw Bigfoot. I don't know about that. And he assured me that there's Bigfoot there. So he challenged me, and because he really wanted to see women, just women without men, dogs, or guns going into the woods trying to get in touch with Bigfoot, because he thought that would be the recipe for success in interacting and getting closer to the big guy. And so jokingly, I was like, all right, pick me. But by the end of the show, I seriously was like, all right, I'm ready. Let's do this. I'll find some girls. We'll go out and give it a try. I felt like I got double dog dared. So I thought, this will be interesting. And so it was his idea for women in the woods without men, dogs, or guns. And he said that usually when people see Bigfoot near roadways or where people are, it's usually these younger males who are out by themselves, probably doing stuff they're not supposed to be doing. And he thought that these younger males would be more inclined to get a little closer to some ladies out there if they didn't have anything dangerous or intimidating with them, like men, dogs, or guns.
Mm-hmm.
So that was his idea. And on top of his idea, I said, well, we are psychic mediums. And I am an energy worker. I sense energy as a physical sensation in my body. It's not just, ooh, I feel good vibes. It's literally a zap, feeling a vibration in the body of different types of energy frequencies. And I thought, we could probably use this to our advantage in looking for Bigfoot. I'd been doing missing persons cases for quite some time. I'd been working with paranormal investigation teams and remote viewing their locations before they would go there. And I would tell them what I was sensing there, what I encountered there when I did the remote view, and what I suggested they could do with that when they got there. And I found out through years of doing those types of things that I was extremely accurate in what I call geographic remote viewing. It's different than the remote viewing that most people are talking about, which is technically called controlled remote viewing. And what I'm doing is I use Google Earth or Google satellite imagery maps. So I'm literally looking at pictures of the Earth from above, and I'm zooming in and asking questions about what I would like to know about certain areas. When I was looking for missing persons, I would ask, is this person here? Is this person here? Show me where this person is. And then if there was something there, it would show that to me on the image. Not necessarily that it's on the image, I would just see it there, and I could drop a GPS coordinate on that spot. And the same thing when I was doing paranormal investigation remote views. I would be able to zoom in and ask, what is here, what's going on here, why is this happening? And what I would see on the picture would be the answer to my question, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So when we started looking for Bigfoot, I started looking at the areas we were going to be interested in. And I was asking, are there any Bigfoot here? Is there any Bigfoot evidence that we can collect here? And wouldn't you know, I started seeing Bigfoot faces or Bigfoot bodies, or I would see areas that were lighting up a certain color, indicating an area that contained evidence that we could collect. And when we went to those spots, sure enough, there was stuff there. Rocks being thrown at us. We were hearing big movements walking towards us, all kinds of different things. We saw Bigfoot on the thermal. And it was, just my very first try at that, that's what happened. and the girls that I was with that night were not my team members that I have currently. This was my first try at it. And I just grabbed some paranormal investigator girls that I knew because I figured they had some good night vision cameras that we probably would need to see in the woods at night. So we found out very quickly that their cameras didn't light up the woods like they had light up haunted houses. And it didn't really work out very well. And those ladies got so scared that the majority of them didn't want to do that ever again. So I had to find new ladies because I was hooked after that.
Do you feel like Bigfoot is something beyond just being a giant monkey man running around out in the woods, or what do you think it is?
At first, I was open-minded. I didn't really believe in Bigfoot at first, but I'm open-minded, and I went out to see if Lauren was correct. And, I'm part Native American, and I had gone and asked the Native elders about it. And, they assured me that Bigfoot was real, but they say that he walks between worlds. he can be here, a physical creature, but he also can move into the spiritual realm at will. And, you know, I take what they say with a grain of salt. I hold it all sacred. It's very precious to me. But there is this rational part of my brain that says I have to see that in order to really grasp it fully. Because a lot of the stories they're really good and fantastical. And for me, I really have that rational mind issue that I need to see it. And so when they said that to me, I was like, okay. And they said, you can pray to Bigfoot to help you and he will help you. And I was like, all right. So that first night that we were out there and rocks were being thrown and something was walking towards us, and then all of a sudden that sound of something walking towards us, bipedal, sticks cracking, big stomps, all that sound multiplied, and now it was coming from different directions towards us. And there were 5 of us girls that night, and we circled up back to back, facing out, trying to see if we could see what was coming, and nobody could see. And one of the girls said, Jen, do your tobacco thing, because we were on an Indian reservation. And what she meant was do a prayer. And so I pulled the tobacco out of my pocket and held it in my hand, and I started to pray in the Ojibwe language out loud. And as soon as I said, Miigwech Kichisabe, which means thank you to Bigfoot, everything stopped. Everything stopped. It didn't retreat. It didn't make any more noise. It just, all the movement suddenly stopped. And I was like, yeah, I was so excited. Now the girls, they weren't so excited. They were just still scared. They had no idea that it had what I had said or that it reacted to me thinking it. They were just knowing that they were very scared and they wanted to leave. So they're like, let's go, jump into the car. And that was the end of that. But for me, that was a confirmation of what my elder had said about they will help you if you pray to them. And so for me, I took that as they recognized that I was communicating with them and respecting them. So they stopped because we were afraid. So for me, that was very good.
Well, Shade Viking in the comments says something. He says, I'm trying to figure out how Bigfoot stays so large when bears have to forage everywhere to maintain their size and have to be visible, and Bigfoot would also have to do that, so it can't be natural. What are your thoughts on that comment?
Yeah, I think that their diets are pretty similar, and I honestly think that they sometimes hang out together. But what are they eating? I know that I have lots of reports of them eating at the same dumpsters that the bears are eating at on the reservations. And I get reports of deer kills, weird deer kills, where the neck is snapped and the ribs are ripped open and only certain parts of it are taken. And so they're definitely eating different things, but I think that they're just better at staying hidden. And I can't say for certain that they can cloak or that they can go in and out of this reality, but that's what people are saying. And until I see it for myself, I can't tell you for sure.
Yeah. And so, but you do paranormal investigations involving spirits, right?
Yes. I got a little bit away from that when I got super involved with Bigfoot, but we still do that on occasion.
Why is that? Like, why did you quit getting involved with it after Bigfoot?
Because I was doing Bigfoot all the time.
Oh,
There's only so much time.
Yeah.
And I do still help people when they call me personally and I know them and they're having an issue. I still do that. But like for helping paranormal investigation teams, that takes a long time. It takes a long time for me to dive into a location from a remotely. And, I'd rather spend that time looking for Bigfoot, I guess, at this point.
So remote viewing, you do remote viewing too?
Yes.
Okay. So you probably know who Jessica Jones is, right?
I know who she is.
Yeah, she does remote viewing. And so is that kind of what you do? You do do you use it to find Bigfoot? I mean, have you been able to get hits from that? Like
Absolutely.
Something that you can say, yeah. But you said you haven't seen any, right? You've never seen it?
Yes, we have. We have thermal video on our YouTube channel.
Yeah, but
And
you
that
said you
was
have
that
to.
was the we
sorry.
have we remote well we were in Tennessee at a Bigfoot conference, and the girls went out with Matthew Delph to one of his locations. They were taking a group out, and I had bronchitis, so they didn't think I should be hiking up at the top of a mountain. So I stayed back, and I said, just send me the GPS coordinates when you get there, and I'll remote view it. And so when they got there, they sent me the coordinates of whereabout they were at, and so I started looking at it. And so when they were done with this group during the day, we met for supper. And I said, all right, so here's the places that I'm seeing Bigfoot at right now. And so we decided that the four of us, my team, myself, Tammy, Jenna, and then Matthew Delph, we went back up there to the coordinates where we were seeing the Bigfoot we're at right now. And there was a spot where I saw them at where it was really close to where we could park. So we drove up there, parked the car. I pulled up my phone. I'm like, do I still have service here? Yes, I do. And so I opened it up and I said, is there any Bigfoot here right now? Show me. And I saw it on the map, and I used the tool, and I'm like, okay, it's 30 feet that way. And I'm still in the car. Tammy grabs Jenna's thermal camera, her FLIR, and she jumps out of the car with that, and she has it on, and she's like, oh my God, there's one right there. And we got footage of that Bigfoot, and it's on our YouTube channel, She Squatchers Official. So, and it was working with something. We were using the black hot setting, and it was funny because at first it was Jenna's camera. Tammy only knew how to turn it on. It has lots of buttons. In the dark, you really don't know which one it is. And so she's clicking the buttons trying to get it to record. And so she's flipping through the different kinds of settings. And she's like, how do you get this to record? How do you get it to record? It's right there. And Jenna finally grabs it and turns it to record and hands it back to her. And so she's recording it, and we're passing it between the three of us so we can all see. And Matthew got to see too. And it just sat there. It looked like it was skinning something because on the black hot setting, the fur turns up as white, and so that's really easy to see in the woods. And then skin shows up as like dark gray or black. So Bigfoot obviously shows up as a stark white thing in the woods then. But what it was doing with its arms, it looked like it was working on something that had a body temperature and not fur. So I don't know if it was skinning something or what it was doing, but it was working with something on the ground there. And we at first thought that it was sitting because we're like, we were just seeing from the waist up. And so we deducted that it's sitting there or something. And the Matthew Delph had gone back during the day because, of course, we were there on a trip and we had to leave the next morning and fly back to home. But Matthew went back out to that spot and he investigated it during the day. And he said, right there's a drop off, like a ledge. And he says it was likely just standing there using that ledge area as like a countertop. So that's why we were just seeing it from the waist up. But he said it's perfect for that right there. So that was one case. But there was another time when we were up in Minnesota and I was looking on my reservation. And I was asking for Bigfoot, and I saw this giant Bigfoot face appear in this area, and it had looked really crabby looking, scary looking face. And I was like, okay, any Bigfoot evidence we can collect here? And about 200 feet from that, I'm seeing this whole area light up, this yellow light. And so I marked both of those spots, and I saw that there was what appeared to be some type of a trail that went between the two. It wasn't a road. It wasn't marked as a road or even a minimum maintenance road. But we went up there and, I took my old vehicle and we started driving back there. There is also a video on our YouTube channel of us driving that with the trees literally scraping in the front of my car. And it was like one of those old time car washes with the mops that come up over your car. It was trees doing that to my car. We're driving it, going on this homemade trail that the natives had built to go and collect the firewood that had downed, the trees that had fell. And, so we were driving back there and I had my GPS open and I'm like, okay, stop right here. So we stopped right between those two spots. And I said, all right, girls, if we go to the right, within 100 feet, we're going to reach that territory of that aggressive male Bigfoot. But if we get out of the car and go directly left, within 100 feet, that's where that Bigfoot evidence is, that lighting up that we can collect. So let's go to the left. And so I got out of the car and I'm ready to go. I've got my stuff going because my goal or my plan was that we locate them, we drive there, we get out of the car and we rush in with our stuff in hand. And that was my plan. But this was the first time that we were doing it. And Jenna had never done this with me before. It was my first time doing that exact plan. And so she hadn't been really familiar with the remote viewing. I realized in the moment that she doesn't really believe in it because she was la da 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 da. She wasn't ready. And I'm like, come on, come on, come on. And so while she was getting ready, I'm looking to the right just to see if I see anything out there. And I took a couple steps. And when I did, there was some rocks that came down in front of me. And I was like, okay. And all of a sudden, Nikki said, oh my gosh, I see something moving back there. And I'm like, what? And she had been looking to the left where the Bigfoot evidence was in my remote view. So I'm like, duh, don't go towards the aggressive male, Jen. Go to the Bigfoot evidence. And so I ran around to the other side of the car and I look into the woods and I'm seeing big dark things moving back there. I'm like, come on, Jenna. And I start walking. Nikki wasn't going to come with us because she was feeling sick that day. So she was just going to stay in the car. And I started walking back there and I'm yelling at Jenna to come on, come on, come on. And to me, she was moving in slow motion. And I'm sure that it was not as long as it felt to me because I was now realizing that I'm walking back there by myself. And that's not what I wanted to do. And so finally she comes and it's funny because when she tells the story sometimes, and then I can't remember what show we were on, but she was literally said, it was like Jen knew something was there because she walked us straight to it. And I'm like, Jenna, I told you it was there, that there was something there. And when we walked back there were things moving. And then we got back there and there was this tall, what I call the tower. And it was literally trees that were teepeed together and stuck in the ground, teepeed together. And then there was foliage weaved together in between them, making like levels. And it was like 2-3 stories tall. And then the base of that, underneath that, there was about 5 feet up. There was just darkness inside of it. It was open inside and just darkness inside there. And there was some type of a bush in front of it. And it kept moving. So we knew something was in there. And so we were moving 6 trying to get around to the side of it. And I didn't want to get too close to whatever was in there. I didn't want to like corner it or have it come out at us. And so we're trying to get around to the side of it. And we're pulling sticks out of the ground, trying to get past it. And it wasn't until later when we looked at the video that we realized that the sticks that we were pulling out of the ground were actually like poked in there, like a man-made or a handmade fence. They were poked in there, crisscrossed. And that type of fencing, this homemade fencing, was around this entire area that had been lighting up this golden light color in my remote view, that whole area. And I didn't know that until we were leaving, trying to get out a different way. And I was like, this whole area is like that. But when we got around to the side of it, we saw that then attached to that on the back side, there was this really long rectangular shaped den-like structure. And it wasn't as tall, but it had like a doorway, but no door. And then it had like a little window, but of course no window, but it was completely weaved together. These trees were stacked on top of each other, and then they were weaved together very tightly. And at one point I actually grabbed a hold of one of the walls and shook it and it wouldn't come loose. And Jen was like, do you want me to go in there? And I kind of peeked in. I'm like, you want to go in there? And she's like, yeah. So she goes in and I'm recording her and in there. And it was so interesting because she said the ground inside of there, it was absolutely cleared out. There was no rocks or sticks or anything in there. But outside of that, there were rocks and sticks everywhere. And she said, it's so soft in here. It's just so soft. She says, this is better than my mattress at home. It's more comfortable. And it wasn't until later that I was showing this video to my neighbor at work in the office next door to mine. He was teaching Army survival for the Army. He's like, Jen, in Minnesota, you have to work the ground up about 8 inches down in order to sleep on it, or the ground will pull the warmth out of your body in certain months. It'll pull the warmth out and you'll die if you sleep out there, like in the fall. And I'm like, well, I didn't know that. And so obviously they knew that. When I showed this to the native elders that were from the reservation there, I showed it to them and they're like, oh yeah, Sabe made that. We know that they make those. And there was one of the elders that I talked to his grandkids had found one like that. And the girls were walking in the woods behind their house, and they came back home and said they had found this really cool fort in the woods, and things they were saying were curious. So he's like, take me to this fort that you found. And so the kids brought their grandfather out there, and he was horrified when he started to see the things that they found. He said at first, he says there was 2 trees that were pulled out of the ground, roots and all, and then tipped upside down and teepeed together with the roots in the air. And he said you walk underneath those and you just keep going, and then you'll see what he called it a hogan looking structure. And I'm like, what is that? And it was similar to what we had found, this rectangular shaped den-like structure. The trees were weaved together, doorway with no door. And he said it was all cleaned out inside, but inside of that one, there was a hole in the ground in the back. And the girls were like, it's really cool. There's a hole in the ground and it goes down to this tunnel. And the girls had gone down in there when they found it. And when he went in there and he looked down into that hole, down into that tunnel, he was scared to death. He's like, there could have been something down there. They could have died. And he rushed them out of there, and he says, don't you ever go back there again. If you ever see anything like this again, you leave and you tell me about it right away. Don't ever go near that again. And he said, they know that Bigfoot's making those structures. But even if Bigfoot wasn't living in that one anymore, something else could have moved into it. And so he was very afraid. He's like, I feel like I almost lost my granddaughters that day. And these are very traditional people. They're very traditional Native people who, speak the Ojibwe language first, and they teach all the stories about nature and about the grass is your brother, every animal, every tree, every plant is your brother or sister, everything is your relative. So even if you're all alone in the forest, you're surrounded by relatives. You're never afraid.
And Bigfoot is your relative too?
Bigfoot is a relative too. He's the big brother. He watches out for us. That's the teaching. I spent 4 hours today with a native elder from the reservation over from mine, and he was telling me Bigfoot and little people stories.
And you think that Bigfoot watch over you and protect you?
I think that they can. I think that and it's many different reservations around here. I've gone and talked to the elders, and they all say you can pray to Bigfoot for help, and he will help you. One elder from the Turtle Mountain Reservation in North Dakota told me that she prays for Bigfoot to keep the deer off the road when she's driving at night through the wilderness areas in the Turtle Mountains. And she said sometimes she sees Bigfoot standing there holding them back.
But Bigfoot is holding the deer back?
Yeah, keeping them away from the road.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I had a report.
That's what she says.
I had a report right out here, right outside of Kerrville, of one throwing a deer onto someone's car. Not all of them are nice. Not all of them are bad. I guess
I would agree with that. I would agree with that. And I feel like the ones up here, if you're respectful to them, they are respectful to you. But I hear reports of the ones down south that are, more aggressive.
Cantankerous, I would say.
Yes. And, like I said, I've seen remote viewed and seen ones here that had an aggressive face. And I didn't want to go near that one. But I see other ones that don't have aggressive faces.
Are there different species as far as you know?
I don't know if they're different species. I think that there are differences. Obviously the skunk ape looks quite different from the ones that we have up here.
Definitely.
But, I think that there are some, I did a remote view for somebody out in Washington, a native man in Washington State. And I didn't know who he was at the time. He just walks up to me at an event and he asked if I would remote view some locations for him. And I said, sure, I need to see the satellite imagery from that area. And he didn't want to give me the GPS coordinates, so he handed me his phone open to those spots. And I was like, all right, I can do that. And so I started looking, asking, and I zoomed in and I'm like, okay, I see a Bigfoot leaning against this tree. And he's like, okay. And he takes his phone back, opens it to another spot. And I started looking and I said, all right, so here I'm seeing 2 native people, a man and a woman, with a Bigfoot. And this is a long time ago. And so I was seeing from a long time ago, and they were showing me like indications of when it was by their clothing. And like they're wearing hides, and there's no like modern beads. These are 1800s. And then I started seeing this hat that she was wearing, and I didn't recognize the hat. And I'm like, I don't know what this hat means. Like they keep showing me the hat that she's wearing, and I don't know what that means. And then it changed to a kind of hat that I would understand. I said, okay, that hat I understand. That's like mid 1800s. He's like, okay. And I said, here's the thing. They're all smiling, and the Bigfoot is standing there with them, shoulder to shoulder. They're literally touching. And it's the man, the woman, and the Bigfoot. And so there's no fear here. They're all smiling. There's no fear because the woman is by the Bigfoot, not the man. And they're friendly. They're friends. They're definitely trading and sharing. But they were here together at this spot right here. And I dropped a GPS pin. I said, right here, they were together. And he's like, okay, well, wasn't good about giving me feedback in the moment. But a few weeks later, I talked to him online. And he said, you know that spot where you saw the Indian people with the Bigfoot? And I said, yeah. He says, I'm just going to let you know that you correctly identified a location where our tribe had a settlement back in the mid 1800s, where we literally did have Bigfoot living with us. And we spoke the same language.
So this is Ojibwe?
No, it wasn't Ojibwe. Mel Scahan is the native man's name, and I'm trying to remember the name of his tribe. I'm sorry, I don't remember.
What
from
state
Washington
was this?
State.
Washington State. Because I was going to tell you, I got a story in Washington. This was a weird story, and I haven't released it because I don't know what to do with it.
Yakima
really
reservation.
If I could get someone to come on and actually from there, there were two ladies. One I spoke to, this was several years ago when I first got this story. And I think it was like 2016. That was several years ago. Time moves so quickly. But two of the women are still alive. One of them is now deceased, but they are like in their 70s. And back in the 70s, they were in a commune. And it was near the Canadian border. And they claimed that their leader, it was really a cult, I guess, and there was a lot of weird stuff going on in the early 70s, late 60s. This guy had moved up there in 1968, and they claim, and I'm not going to get into the whole because I may do a show about it, but they claim that they were subjected to abuse from these Sasquatch-type creatures. They didn't say they were Sasquatch because they don't know exactly what they were. They were hairy, large, men. They weren't humanoidal. They weren't men, obviously. Most men aren't 8 foot tall and covered in hair, but the leader of this group had subjected them to these creatures, and they worshipped them. Like, they literally worshipped them. And it's such a crazy story. I'm not going to say crazy because I don't want these women to think they're crazy, because one of them does listen to the show regularly. The other one does not. The other one now lives in, like, New Jersey, because that's where she originally was from. The other one lives in Southern California. And it's when you talk to these people, these Bigfoot, these Sasquatch or whatever, they weren't nice. They weren't friendly. They didn't do anything good. They basically were spoiled too by the humans by giving them things, and they would come into the village and take women. And many of the women were, hurt by these creatures. And so I think it's irresponsible, for one thing, to say, not you, I'm saying, but for some, and I love Lauren Coleman. Don't get me wrong. He's a friend. I consider him a friend. I think he's a good guy. But I think that Lauren may have been looking at it. Well, I don't know how Lauren sees it, because he also talks about the name game, which is borderlines on paranormal. He talks about that where, like, for example, Taylor, Texas, Taylor, Mississippi, Taylor, Michigan, they're all known for the hotspots of paranormal activity. And it all has the name Taylor. And he is one of the people that coined that phrase, the name game. Like, it's weird how that pops up. It's like it shows up, like a pattern. Mm-hmm. Now, if you're just a straight, zoologist or a cryptozoologist who doesn't believe in anything, you're not even going to pay attention to that. That doesn't matter at all. That's just a coincidence. So I'm not real sure, and I can't speak for Lauren, but I would not personally and wording this carefully, I would not tell 3 women to go out into the woods looking for these creatures, because you've been fortunate that nothing really seriously bad has happened. But I had your friend Jenna Grover on the show, and not debating or arguing or starting a debate, I should say, Jen, because we're friends.
Right.
But what she encountered seemed to be a little more scary, I guess.
Which one was she telling you about?
Well, when she was on the show, she told us that for one thing, y'all were looking for a Bigfoot. You ran into a gnome, which happens actually quite a bit, which is odd.
Yeah.
But that's not the scariest. What I'm talking about is the Bigfoot coming out of the guy's face or head. And of course, I know who that guy is.
That was in a restaurant with that happened. Mm-hmm. And I was at the table. It was a large group of people, and I wasn't talking to the same people she was. And I wish I had been, because maybe I would have seen that too, and that would have been a good experience. And I believe in Jenna.
From what she said, it doesn't seem like a good experience. I mean, it seemed like it definitely freaked her out to see that happen.
It would freak me out too.
Her.
I mean, I don't know.
It did freak her out. I was there. It freaked her out really bad. She didn't want to talk about it. At first, when you start seeing things like that, even if you are psychic or sensitive, when you first start seeing things like that with your eyes open and you're not trying, it is startling and it's scary no matter what it is that you're seeing. Now, the Bigfoot that she saw wasn't mean. I think he said, "I love you." So, I mean, it wasn't a scary Bigfoot. But what she saw,
serial killers tell people they love them too, and so does the devil. I mean, it doesn't really. I mean, the point is that I am of the opinion and that you get good and bad in everything.
That's true.
Some people have even, like that really honestly believe, they believe it. And hear me out for a second, and we're going to go down the rabbit hole with this one, and the guests and everybody's clamoring to hear. There are people who believe in the Nephilim. Now, I argued with a guy the other day in a group that I'm in that's about that. And it's about the Anunnaki. And the guy said, no, none of the Nephilim survived. None of them survived because God doesn't make mistakes, and he wiped out the entire earth, blah, 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 the end. There were 3 people. Ham, Japheth, and Shem. They were the only ones that lived. Everybody else died. And I told him, no, you're wrong, because if you read the Bible, if you are a biblical person in the Old Testament, I'm more of a New Testament person. I think that a lot of the translations have been mixed up, and I do believe that a lot of the Old Testament was co-opted from earlier civilizations. Fight me on it. I don't care. People can get mad all they want. That's the truth. Okay.
Sumerian tablets. I'm with you.
Yeah. I mean, I'm telling you that there's a lot there. But one of the things that I told this guy, I said, now, how did Caleb and Joshua encounter giants in the land of Canaan, according to the traditions of the Israelites? How did they, if they were all wiped out by the flood? Now, you're talking thousands of years afterwards. But they said that there were clumps of grapes that were as big as men, and these giants were carrying them. How did Magellan in Patagonia, how did he encounter 12-foot tall giants? And it's a matter of record that they tried to bring them across on the ships, and they died. Then how was there a giant, and I'm going to get into this on the show eventually, at the siege of Tenochtitlan, who fought that no gun, no musket ball or arrow could pierce. Now, people are so ignorant that this one guy goes, well, that's dumb. Why would the arrow try to be piercing? Because the Indian did try to fight the Spaniard. And I said, because the Spaniards had no more than 1,000 men. The Tabascans and the Tlaxcalans, who were being systematically eradicated by everybody's heroes, the Aztecs, they were being slaughtered by them. They threw their lot in with the Spaniards as their last-ditch effort to try to get rid of these people who were cutting out their hearts. So while everybody waxes poetic about how sad it is at the downfall of the Aztec Empire, they were committing genocide on a massive scale, and they had wiped out at least a dozen other tribes.
I mean, I'm pretty sure at that time period, there was nothing like it on the planet of the Earth.
Nowhere before or since have we seen sacrifice on that scale. Now, there's a close second and third with a couple other civilizations, like the Mayans being one of them. And that's neither here nor there. But the point is that people are so ignorant, they don't understand history. They don't read it. They don't learn it. And they take one little thing and they focus on that. They magnify it, and that becomes their world. Now I'm going to touch base on what people are saying in the comments about you saying praying to Bigfoot. First of all, if I heard this correctly, that's something that you were told to do by the elders of the Native Americans, right? They told you that?
Now, that's native spirituality. You pray with the nature. You pray with the trees. You pray with the rocks. You pray with the earth. I mean, and you pray you pray that there's a deer reaching the end of its natural life cycle that will come and bring itself to give it to your family for food. I mean, it's not like, oh, I worship you. It's like you pray to that to come to you.
That is the argument. Now, I'm not Catholic, but I was baptized. Actually, Kenny Irish, a friend of mine who is writing a book, he asked me about this, and I had said something about it. It'd probably be in the book. I've been baptized 3 times. Once as a baby as a Catholic, when I was 5, going on 6 as a Baptist, and then again as a non-denominational when I was like 11. So I've been baptized 3 times in my life. That's a weird fact. That's a weird little tidbit of information. But I have studied. I did CCD as a kid because it pleased my grandmother on my dad's side and my great aunt on my mom's side because they were Catholic. So I had to go. I learned about Catholicism. Did not accept it and am not a Catholic, but I don't reject it either. One of the things that I argued with someone who was a diehard, I think he was evangelical, and he said praying to Saint so-and-so, and he said, insert name here. He said, is a sin. Now, I told him this. I said, I personally don't do that. When I pray to God, I pray through Christ as an intermediary. Now, the Muslims would say that that's not correct, but their God is Allah, which also I don't agree with because that was the name of an Arabic moon god that goes back thousands of years. And not only that, but the crescent is on their flag. And so I argue with my Muslim friends about it, but I'm respectful, and I'm respectful of their religion. I'm respectful of all other religions, and I don't reject, I personally just have my own belief. Now, what people don't understand, and they never do enough research to even open their mouths about it, I don't know why they do. When you pray to something, that is not worship. And I have said this before on the show. Prayer can be for intercession. It can be asking. Now, if you were a peasant in 13th century England, you would pray to your noble. You would go, oh, Lord, I beseech thee, I pray thee, help me, oh, Lord. They're not saying, God, help me, blah, blah, blah. They're praying to the local duke, insert douchebag, noble title here, whatever. And they would say, oh, Baron, I pray thee, please don't take my wife and my pigs. This is all I have, and you have everything, and you're taking that too. I pray thee, allow me to live in this hovel of squalor. And the Baron's like, no, I want that too. I'm 400 pounds overweight, but I still want that because this is my right. Well, that is what life was like, and it sucked. But if you look at the Old English, that's what they would do. It was written that way. I pray ye, O Lord. A Lord just means like the boss. That's all it is. When you're praying to God and you say, O Lord, you are pronouncing God. And to me, it's the one true God. I say, oh, Lord, I'm saying you are the Lord. You are the Lord thy God. Now, when you say the Lord thy God, and you're putting the Lord first, well, it's just like Spanish, right? When you say Spanish, Anthony, you know this. We speak Spanish. You'll put it before, like what you're addressing. You'll put the adjective sometimes like it comes after, right? Yeah. Okay. So that, because somebody argued with me about the wording of that. And I said, no, it's basically pronouncing that God is Lord. Okay? Lord and God are not necessarily the same thing. Lord Vader, in Star Wars, look, he's not God, but they call him Lord Vader because it's a title. So God has a title. He has many titles. That is what that means. So when someone says they prayed to the saint of whatever, St. Christopher, the traveler saint, let's just use him for example. You're praying for intercession. Now, there's some people who are very strict, and they believe that if you pray and ask for intercession from anyone other than God, that's wrong. But who are we to judge? You don't know. You really don't know. Now, there are people who will say, and I had this lady the other day, she goes, you know why I know? Because I feel discernment in my heart through the Holy Spirit. And I told her, I said, my Muslim neighbor feels the same thing. My Jewish neighbor feels the same thing. They feel discernment in their heart too, and they just know it's true, and it is true by God. It is true because my God said, and let me tell you something, their gods are all different. I'm sorry to say it. They try to say the Abrahamic faith, and then I argued with this person who was of a different faith than mine. They claim we're all Abrahamic faith. I said, no, we're not. He said, yes, we are. And then I'm turning this into a theological whatever clinic here, but I'm gonna clear the air is what I'm doing. And I told this person, I said, no, because your God is different than my God. Jesus makes that very clear when he's arguing with the Pharisees. And I'm not going to get into a whole whatever to offend people, but I said my God didn't have a name like yours. Okay? And then I went a step further. I said my God has never demanded animal sacrifice. Where does he demand that in the New Testament? He doesn't. And so I told them, I said very clearly, Abraham was not Israelite. Yes, he was. I said, no, he was not. And it even talks about in certain books of the Bible, and some of them have been taken out, and it talks about there's a story of Abraham and Sarah Wati, who were from an ancient land beyond the Euphrates. And God says, you can serve me, Yahweh, or you can serve the powerful ones from the heavens beyond the Euphrates. Well, Abraham says, as for me and my house, in the land of Yahweh, I will serve Yahweh. So he chose to serve Yahweh. Now, that was the beginning of the Abrahamic faiths. There was no Israelites for a long time. There was nobody called the Israelites. There was no Israel. That didn't happen until after the Exodus, which there also is no archaeological proof still to that happened. I do believe there was a Moses. I do believe some of it happened, but not completely. And people can look at me as an apostate or a heretic. I look at myself as a person who's studied and learned. And anyone else that's in the audience or out in the world can do the same research and footwork that I do. It takes a lot of time, a lot of energy, and a lot of effort. Now, those who are willing to learn and willing to go out and figure it out, more power to you. But the last thing I want is for someone to come on my show and berate or belittle people because they are telling you, hey, that they pray to this or pray to that. Prayer does not equal worship. Now, fixation on something and saying the words, I worship you, I serve you. Now, if you took this, actually, I don't know what this is. This is probably a vampire steak. We're not real sure. And I said, I worship, and you sit here and you obsess on it, and then you pray like it's an idol, which there was a lot of that going on. They were praying to idols as a representation or an avatar of their gods. That, I believe, is wrong because that is an idol. It can no more hear or see than a rock. Now, if you're praying to something and you're asking for intercession, you can make a mind connection with an animal. I feel like I've done that many times. I have willed things to happen. God allows us to do that. But I don't believe in this stricture where people say, oh, that person's going to hell because they asked for intercession from a particular saint. I don't believe that. I believe that that's their belief. That's what they choose to do. And nobody can make that decision but God. And I asked people, I was like, is your name God? First or last? Is it Lord God? No, it's not. Okay, then you don't have the ability to make that decision. Now, you explained yourself.
There is a scripture that says, ask the earth and it will teach you. Ask the birds and they will show you. It goes on about asking, and it says to do it.
Well, it even says we're supposed to preach the gospel to the animals. I mean, yeah, look it up. I mean, people, they grow up living in a religious bubble or in a bubble that's, not religious. There's a lot of, what is it called, Anthony? When it's not religious, it's a society that's, Oh God, I'm fumbling for a word here. Secular. There are secular societies, and you cannot convince them of any spirituality whatsoever.
When I was a kid, and I was raised as a Christian, and I tell you, we were in church a lot, Bible studies, like crazy. And so I know what you're talking about. But when I was a kid, the idea of the Holy Spirit or the Holy Ghost scared the crap out of me because I was imagining a ghost that was everywhere all the time, watching you, knowing everything. And that scared me. But as an adult and in reconnecting with native spirituality, which felt very natural to me because I always had a connection with nature. And that to me felt normal, natural. That felt very welcoming and peaceful. And learning about Gitchimanadu or Gitchimanito, which means the Great Spirit, which literally translate, when they translated the Bible into Ojibwe, Holy Spirit translated into Great Spirit or Gitchimanatu. So that literally is the Holy Spirit. So when I ask what does Gitchimanadu mean, and when they talk about that spirit that is everywhere, it really made more sense to me from their aspect of it is everywhere all the time. It is literally like a Wi-Fi signal. They don't say Wi-Fi, but to me, it's like a Wi-Fi signal that's everywhere all the time that connects all living things. And that through that Holy Spirit, through Gitchimanadu, you can connect with anyone, anywhere, anything, anywhere.
That is very understandable, yeah.
So you send your prayers through that. You send your prayers through that. So you want to reach out and you want to say, hey, I'm looking for a deer. Our family is hungry. And this is literally my great uncle told me that they never went hungry because that everything was always provided when they needed it. And I said, well, how did that happen? And he said, we prayed through Gitchimanadu. We asked that a deer would be given to us. We asked that a deer reaching its natural life cycle, the end of its natural life cycle, would be willing to offer itself to our family, and they would just show up. They would be there.
Yeah, and so if you're looking at it from your perspective, now I personally don't pray to anything other than God through Christ, but sometimes I will address Christ directly or the Holy Spirit. And I don't have time to go into an entire sermon about what I believe or think the connection between God, the Holy Spirit, and Christ are. I do have my own theories about it, but people are going to be upset regardless of what I say. They're going to be like, oh, this guy's not, whatever. Or some people get offended just even talking about it at all. I mean, but if you were to go through these ancient texts and read what it says, and it's really not fair for people to go, well, I just believe this because I feel it. I believe I should win the lottery because I feel it. I believe I should be rich. I also believe I should be emperor of the world, but because I feel it. I wake up every day and I look in the mirror and I'm like, why am I not the emperor of this world? I know everything more than these people and I should be in charge. And then God tells me to sit down, shut up, and behave, and then I do. But I do have that pride in me because I feel like when I'm talking to people, and I'm not trying to be mean or ugly, but sometimes I feel like I'm talking to fifth graders, and these people have education, and they're pontificating to me. And we proselytize first, and then pontificate because they know I'm not going to listen. Then it becomes you're a poo-poo cockahead and blah, 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 because you're not on the same level with them and whatever. And it's like these people, when you choose to read in an echo chamber, that's what you're going to get. I've chosen to read both sides of the argument and then make a decision. Now, most people will come to the right conclusion if they do have discernment, but you have to gain discernment too. You know what I mean? And so when it comes to this subject, when it comes to Bigfoot, when it comes to the big feet, okay, there is so much out there on both sides. I get proselytized to a couple times a day, and people will try to get me to come to their side. I have had people try to get me to come to their show, and they want me to spout off a narrative almost like they're reading it to me. And it's happened with Dogman too. And I'm like, I won't do that. And as my companions here can admit, we've been offered to be paid to say things that we don't agree with. and we turn it down. Because I'm not going to sit up here and babble and tell people about things that I just don't feel good about. I mean, I'm not going to do that. I have agreed to never do that. There are things going on in my life that are beyond my control. I understand that. And I admit that I can't control everything. Would I like to? Absolutely. Would I like to fix the wrongs in this world? And do I see it? Yes. All I could tell you, the listeners, folks, is to stop looking at things like this. Stop. When you're this close, you can't read anything. Take it and look at it like this. And then you can see it for the mosaic that it is. But that's a big part of the problem in this field is the judgment that people like. I don't totally agree with everything you have to say, but it's your right to say it, and I think it's, you know, the listeners can make their own decisions. Now, I thank you for clarifying the whole prayer thing. I explained what I thought about it, and you can continue. I just wanted to make sure that people understood. But I personally, now I'm just putting it out there, I wouldn't pray for to any other whatever, because I reserve prayer in the spiritual realm to what I know to be as God. Now, people are going to interpret God in different ways, and I've said this before. Just because someone calls themselves a believer in God doesn't mean they are. There are people that get up there and accept awards in Hollywood, and they're like, I want to thank God. Do you know who their God is? Because not all of them are believing in the Father of Christ. And there are Christians that'll sit there and clap and go, I knew that guy was a good guy. He's probably not praying to the God that you think he is. It is God to them, and that's their right to be the way that they are, but that's not really, they're not on the same page with you. And a lot of people who believe in certain aspects of the Bible aren't your friends just because you believe in the Bible too. That's just the truth. And people can get mad and cry and gnash their teeth all you want. The truth is the truth, and it's going to come out. It finds its way out no matter what bag you put it in. So that's my soapbox. You know, go ahead and talk. Do what you continue with what you were saying, Jen. I'm sorry I had to say all that, but you know, like I said, you choose to pray to Bigfoot, but you're not worshiping him, right? I mean,
No, of course not. Of course not. So Native people pray to the Creator, like literally worship the Creator. They call Creator. So that which created us, that's pretty specific, right?
yeah.
So I don't think we can get that wrong. So that is who they worship. And that when you pray to worship, thank you for this, thank you for my life, thank you for another day, that type of prayer is to the Creator.
I will say something. You said you're part Native. My grandmother was Comanche. Okay, They obviously, I make no bones about this. They were very barbaric. They were very warlike. They did a lot of bad things. You know, they literally killed a lot of people. They were pretty indiscriminate, though. I mean, they took pride in certain people's hair, for example. Like they would kill African people and they would kill Chinese people. The Chinese had the quay. And it was prized and for them because they thought, oh, this is, you know, they liked the way it was braided and it was just on the back of their head and it made them look like a type of an animal to them. And they liked the hair of the African Americans because it was buffalo hair. It was like buffalo hair growing on a person. They would literally kill people for that. They would kill Irish people to take their freckles. They would kill Irish people to take their red hair. They killed Swedish and German people for their blonde hair. Or you know, because they didn't, their eyes, blue eyes, and they thought we would get them some sort of power. They were fascinated with blue eyes for some reason, probably because they didn't have them, and so they were known to be very barbaric, and they did commit genocide against, I would estimate, at least a dozen other tribes, just like the Aztecs. They killed a lot of other tribes, but they, unlike the Aztecs, were not cannibals, and they despised the Karankawas and the Tonkawas for two reasons. One was because they believed that land belonged to them. The other reason was because they were cannibals, and they would kill them for that. It was disgusting to them. And they had one god. One. Their ally, the Kiowa, had several gods, and it was very odd to them. When they would meet up to trade with the Kiowa or the Cheyenne, who were also, and the Lakota, which were their three, I wouldn't say they were friends, but they respected them enough to where they didn't always try to kill them. And those three tribes, in particular the Cheyenne and the Lakota, were larger than the Comanches, but they feared the Comanches because it's kind of like that unstable friend you have that you don't know. I mean, you know, like he's moody and you kind of want to be cool with him. Me and Loki used to have a boss like that. He was just kind of like, what mood is this guy in? If he's in a good mood, it's a good night. If not, then people are going to get fired. And not me, but he would fire other people, you know, like the new guys. And so, you know, that's kind of how they approached the Comanches. But the Comanches had the best horses. They were respectful of other people's religions, but they had one belief, and that was the God who was and is the heaven. That was it. There was no other God. They didn't believe in anything else, and they never accepted anything else. And they would observe the Lakota and the Kiowas ceremonies, and they would be respectful, but they would never participate, and they would never eat or drink anything given to them during these ceremonies, which was kind of an affront to the Lakota and the Kiowa. And if it was anyone other than the Comanches, they probably would have killed them. But the Comanches were kind of like the Nermana, were people just to not be messed with. And somebody says the Comanche had to deal with the Apache too. The Comanches killed the Apache. In fact, the word Apache means enemy. And they pretty much tried to a genocide. And so, in other words, the Apaches, they don't like being called the Apaches. Like the Mescalera, go to the end of the mountain gods in New Mexico, in Ruidoso, and say, hey, I heard you're Apache. They don't like that because you're basically calling them a piece of crap because that's what the Comanches called them.
You know, the Romans did the same thing. They called every outside tribe barbarian, which was incorrect. Mm-hmm. But that was also started by the Greeks. But when you look at the way that they treated people, they were very, very, very warlike and aggressive and violent. But you're right in the way that they did believe in one creator, which was the heaven, and their sole belief was that the heaven rained down on the earth and created all life. And that was creator. That was it. There was nothing else. You didn't pray to anything else. You didn't worship anything else. There was no other spirit, this or that. It was that, period. That was it. Now, there's a lot of people who would say they're wrong and that they're bad for their belief, but they actually had a belief. They just weren't real like fervent about it, as a lot of these other tribes had all these different myths and legends. The Comanche didn't have a lot of that. But they did have names for certain entities and creatures like evil spirits and things like that. They knew because they would see them. And they knew that they were not a part of Creator. So they assumed those to be bad, especially shadows that moved by themselves. They had names for that. They had names for what they believed to be people that could become coyotes. They didn't like their interactions with their neighbors to the west, in particular the Navajo and the other types of Apaches, because they believed they had bad medicine and that they could curse you. And now they lived in the area of Comancheria because it was blessed by Creator. Now you go into their beliefs and their views, they were pretty much like, you know, they didn't veer much from that. But I respect other natives and their beliefs of what, you know, because there's so many different tribes with so many different beliefs. Who's to say what is correct and what is not? You know what I mean? So when you were amongst these different tribes and these different people, did you encounter like differences in what they called like Bigfoot? Like some of them called him Oma, some of them called him Opa. What other tribes did you encounter like differences in names for God, for the Bigfoot creatures, or even the Dogman? Did you have any encounters with people that talked about that?
Well, I think in every language, people have a word that describes what Bigfoot is, and also what Creator is. But in my experience dealing with other tribes and what they all believe in creator. Whatever name they call creator might be different in their language, just like they believe in Bigfoot, but the word that they use to describe what Bigfoot is, the name that they give it might be different. But they're still talking about Bigfoot. And I think different tribes, from what I've encountered, different tribes have different experiences. Like the Ojibwe have Bigfoot as our brother. He looks out for us. You know, I heard stories today from an elder who I had lunch with, who was telling me about how they were motorcycling with dirt bikes in the woods when he was younger. And they were going on these trails and they were hightailing it. And all of a sudden they saw Bigfoot. So they slowed down. And because they saw the Bigfoot up there and they slowed down. And if they hadn't done that, they would have gotten hurt, because as they continued to go, they saw that there was something wrong with the trail and they would have gotten hurt had they not slowed down. And they felt that Bigfoot had showed himself so that they would slow down, to warn them that there was danger ahead. And so that's the type of way that they look at that. Of course, the creation story of the Ojibwe talks about the creator, how he clapped his hands and sparks flew, and then he created this and that. And every time he clapped his hands and sparks flew, he created something else. He created the stars, the earth, the planets, you know, the suns, and he created all the living things on the planet. And every time he clapped his hands and sparks flew. And he created all the animals on the earth and all the fish and the birds and all the insects. And then the last thing that he created was man. And man was the youngest of all things on the planet. And he asked the animals and all the other creatures and all the plants and all the trees and everything to look after and take care of man. So for the asking, he asks for you for food, you give yourself to food for man. And that everyone agreed, all the other life on the planet agreed to do this for man.
Yeah.
So, I mean, but they're still talking about the creator, but all we have to do is ask.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you know, but every tribe I've encountered talks about the creator. And I think it's pretty safe, because as a Christian, I was born and raised as a Christian. I had the fear, like Christians have, you know, have the fear. Well, is that God or is that something else? I had to deal with that. And I came up with facing that fear. I was like, well, you know, it can't be that tricky. Otherwise, it wouldn't be fair. So if I pray to the creator, to the one who created all that is, that this is who I'm praying to, only and only that you will keep these other things away from me. And this is who I'm talking to you, right, directly. And I should be able to let go of all those other fears, that maybe it's not that, because I've already asked you that you are the one I'm talking to, only you. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
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 So,
and one of the things too, people like, you know, I like to work out. And what I'm going to tell you, this isn't like, I like to work out, Corn Popper's a bad dude. No, I'm not going off on some weird tangent here. Trust me. What I'm saying is, I like to exercise at the gym and give me an hour and a half to just go and lift weights and do what I do. Because in that moment, in those moments that I have, I am just in the now. I'm not thinking about payroll and taxes and work and, you know, stories I have to read and interviews I have to do and a conference and, you know, what am I doing, blah, blah, blah. The task at hand has to be done. And when I'm done, I feel a sense of relief and I feel good. But I'm also a little bit sad that it's over, because now I have to go back to reality and live my life and be an adult. You know what I mean? But in those moments, you're in the now. And I think that we as a people have lost that in a lot of ways. Every day there is a thing that I believe people should do. It's called the Wim Hof. And if you're of good enough health, I would recommend it. It's a breathing exercise. Just look it up. There's one for beginners. He talks like this. He's a Dutchman. You know, he's a really good guy. He gets on there and he's just, you know, and then I take cold showers. It helps me to rejuvenate and I feel better about, you know. And then there's a Chinese remedy for helping you with your immune system. And it really does work. I was starting to get sick recently because we had a mold in our apartment and we're going through hell with it right now. I don't live in that apartment right now. Nobody's living there. I'm living in a house, but we had to pull everybody out of the apartment because there was mold. But I was getting sick, and one of the things that you can do is take something really cold, like you can freeze like a bottle of water, put it at the base of your skull and the base of at your top of your neck, and put it there for 20 minutes every other day. It's an ancient Chinese remedy, but it works. And these things were passed down from generation to generation. And in those moments, you are cold and you feel whatever, but then the cold goes away and it becomes a relaxing sensation, and you'll feel better. And you can achieve more things by using these wisdoms of these people, the ancients. And I believe the Native Americans had a lot of wisdom that was very simplistic. And so people discount it like, oh, yeah, they're just simple people, blah, 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 because they're not telling you that the truth is to be found in your smartphone. They're telling you that the truth is to be found in nature and what's around you. And all you really need is that. And I believe, and I'm not one of these hippy-dippy people who are like, yeah, man, they're smarter than we are. You know, Cherokee hair tampons. No, dude, I'm not. That's not what I'm getting at. What I'm saying is that there is a lot to be gleaned from these people. If they choose to pray in the way that they pray, let them pray. I don't care. It doesn't affect me, you know. But in the way that it is used in a context of like, oh, I'm praying and you're obsessing on it, then that becomes worship, which is wrong. But when you're asking for something from the universe, from nature, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But I do believe that everybody's views should be respected. And, you know, I didn't want things to get out of hand with people kept asking about the prayer thing or whatever. I understand where you're coming from with that. And it sounds like you have a lot of wisdom that you've gleaned from the different tribes of people that you've dealt with. And I hope that you continue on your journey of learning and continuing to gain information and knowledge from these people. I think it's cool that you go to these people in a respectful way, and that you hear them out and you listen, and that's neat that you can do that, because so many people will go to someone else's arena, land, whatever you want to call it, and then try to change those people to fit their beliefs and their narratives. And I think that's a lot of what was happening back in the 1800s. Instead of coexisting and saying, hey, that's something that just was lost. It was like, no, you know, you don't have a piece of paper that says this is yours, so we're going to take it. That's not correct. That's not right. And people know right from wrong. But what gets me, and I'm going to say this, Jen, is there's a lot of people who will sit there and use the Native Americans as, hey, Sasquatch exists because the Native Americans said this, the Native Americans said that. But then when you call them out and say, well, they believe it's a spiritual entity. Oh, well, you know, the Native Americans really don't know all that. They don't even know how to use a smartphone. So blah, 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 blah. And that is a lot of what research. I've had researchers literally make a joke after I've said something about the Native Americans believing in it's a spirit, and they'll say there's one guy they met up in, you know, such and such land of the such and such, and that guy doesn't believe it, and they'll use that one guy. And then they'll say, well, then again, they also believe in otter men too. Ha, ha, ha. You know, so you can't really, and these are people who are just absolutely determined to box what we know of as Dogman, Bigfoot, whatever, all into they're physical or they're nothing. And I don't believe that. And I believe that most Native Americans they have a better understanding of the body and the spirit connection. And I hope that that's where you stand. I don't know that it is, but from what you're saying, yeah, you do grasp that because your background started out, if I'm correct, in spirituality, right? Yeah.
Well, I've always been a sensitive. I've always interacted with spirits and known that people died. Like as a kid, I wouldn't think it as a thought. It would just fly out of my mouth that somebody just died. And I would say, Aunt Gladys just died. And then I'd cover my mouth because I heard what I said. And that was the first time I knew of that. So, I mean, things like that would happen. And, you know, I always had things happening like that. And it just got stronger as I got in my 30s. It really blew open huge and developed into what it is now. And I think that's something that is available to everyone. That to expand their conscious awareness and what they become aware of, because the brain, science tells us that the brain works at 400 billion bytes per second. That's what it's actually doing. It's not a potential. 400 billion bytes per second. But the average human is only consciously aware of 2,000 bytes per second out of the 400 billion that you're processing and that you're thinking about. So the majority of that is outside of your conscious awareness. And I tried to make a pie chart of that. It doesn't even show up as a sliver of hair on a full pie chart. It's just too small of a number in comparison of what your brain is actually processing. So, but all this other stuff, all the things that we label as psychic or these extra knowings are in our subconscious awareness. So we all see auras, we all sense energies, we all feel what other people are feeling, we all can sense the animals around us and things like that. But it's in our subconscious awareness. And we're hearing frequencies that we're not aware that we're hearing. But we're processing this information in our subconscious. And so this is where our gut feelings come from. When we feel something so strongly and we trust that, it's because it's coming through from our subconscious that this is like warning bells are going off. This is what's happening. Pay attention. And you trust those gut feelings, don't you? But people don't understand where they come from, and that's where they come from. It's part of that. And so I tell people that when we look at something, it's like we're looking through binoculars, and we can see, maybe we'll look up at an eagle, and we can see that eagle really well through the binoculars. And that's our conscious awareness. That's what we're able to be aware of consciously. But we are able to shift our head and look a little bit somewhere else different and see something else. So if you just slow yourself down and you're like, okay, I see the eagle, but what else is here? And you shift your awareness to something else and you see something else. And then you can shift your awareness to something else. So you can take your 2,000 bytes of conscious awareness and shift it to see what else is here in the same moment. If that makes sense.
It does to a degree. Yeah. I mean, one of the things I've wondered about too is, like somebody said in the comments section, and it's kind of scary. That they want to download into new bodies and start downloading into computers and in reverse. We've talked about AI on the show and all these different, whatever. And I'm not saying that, like, when you talk about like Bigfoot, for example, we're talking about that. I'm not saying that they are some technologically advanced species. They don't have to be. Because when you are in the spirit, the power of will is pretty much everything. You don't need technology. Technology is you are technology. I mean, does that make sense? So
yeah, everything is via consciousness.
Consciousness, yeah. And I always talk about this. I talk about the yugas. When you go back to the yugas and you talk about the Satya Yuga, the beginning yuga, which is, there's 4 ages. And it's cycles. So this is in the Vedas of the Hindus. Now, I believe that there's truth in all places. You just got to find it. There's 4 cycles, the Tetra, which is the second, and then the Dwarpa third, and then the fourth is the final, the Kali. And then it starts over. When you go to the very beginning, people live to be 100,000 years. And I also believe that they were giants in the way that they were, beyond giants. I'm talking like 100-foot giants. I'm not talking about like somebody, that person's 15 feet tall. I'm talking about giants because they did not, you see images of what looks like a small hill or mountain, and that it looks like a person. That's because that's what that is. And I really believe that that's what that was. And then in the Tatra Yuga, which evil was introduced, it was no longer just the power of will. And what was left of that quarter of evil had to be reassigned. And evil made its appearance. And people's lifespans dropped down to 10,000 years. And then in the Dwarpa Yuga, people lived to be 1,000 years. And we got the Bible that says that over and over again. Methuselah, Noah, they all lived to be, 800,000 years. Our lifespans now max out at 100 years, and we're itty-bitty little dudes. We really are. 6'4", I'm considered a pretty big guy. But I'm small compared to, a Sasquatch or a Bigfoot. I'm small compared to a Dogman, But in reality, they're tiny compared to their predecessors too, which I think really came about toward the end of the Tatra Yuga going into the Dwapara Yuga. That's where it really went off the rails. Somebody mentioned earlier about water being the only thing that God didn't create. There again, you have to be really careful, because who or what is God? You know, if God hovered over the face of the deep and he created it at that point, who created the deep? People can't really answer that. Theology can't really answer that question, because there was nothing before God. But who or what is God? Now, that's where I believe the Holy Spirit comes in. I believe the Holy Spirit is the Spirit. That is all that is. And that God is tethered to the Holy Spirit as the avatar, and that his Son was Christ. And I believe that the Holy Spirit, being wielded by God and his Son, came here to pull us out of this period that we're in. And I think it's all connected. I don't think that people talk about there's this deception and all this stuff. There's not. There really isn't. If you have the ultimate discernment, which is to truly come to terms, first of all, with who you are and what you are, and then truly come to terms with your connection with God, which will give you the connection to nature. That's a byproduct. Then you will understand the nature of reality. I have been outside my body, and now I've caught flack from another channel. A couple people said something about me saying this. That being outside my body, one of the things that I learned was that this reality is almost like a dream state. And like there are many Native Americans and Aboriginals in Australia, they'll talk about this too. This is a dream world, because things are not as solid and real here as they are in that other established world, which is a spiritual plane of existence. And I'm not talking about the astral plane. That's a lower vibrational level. I'm talking going beyond the fourth level. And if you can get to that other level, you will start to understand the true nature of our reality and where we are in our place in the cosmos. I'm not saying that God isn't God. I'm saying that we don't understand God, but we try to put, and this is the most important thing, human characteristics on God. When I believe that the Comanches had it right, God is the heaven. He's all that is. He's everything. There isn't anything else. He came from the heaven and he created whatever. And when you look at where the place in your place in the cosmos is, and then you try to figure out where the place is with these creatures, like these Bigfoot, let's just go with them. They are supposedly a naturally occurring creature, yet no one can capture one. No one can even get a good picture of one. Okay? They just can't do it. It just has not happened. Now, you can get pictures and say, yeah, they saw one. Somebody said earlier, they saw one behind a casino and there's a video of it. Where is it? And if you do see it, now we can CGI or use AI to do anything. They can take your face and have you saying all kinds of stuff. And so now we don't know which way is up, and technology is now going to become a dead end for us, because it's not going to prove a darn thing, because we can't trust it. We cannot trust it. And the further we go into this sort of going into AI and accepting it and whatever, and kind of pushing out the gospels and everything else and just kind of accepting all these other whatever, it starts little by little. And not to sound arrogant or crass, but somebody like me, I can read about these other religions and these other views, and I can listen to 1,000 people talk about their God and whatever it is, and it's not going to affect my belief at all, because I have an established set of beliefs. Now, would it change a few things here and there, maybe along the road? Yeah, but for the most part, I've figured out where I'm at in my place in the cosmos. But that doesn't mean we aren't still constantly learning. But it's not going to have an overwhelming impact where I'm going to go, you know what, I'll be at the Buddhist temple next week. I denounce my Christian religion and go blah, blah, blah. That's not going to happen. You know, but am I willing to hear them out? Yeah, absolutely. Does it mean I'm going to convert and become a Zen master? No, it doesn't. But do I believe that it has a philosophical principle that can be gleaned from it? Yeah, I do. That, for me, for my money, I still believe, and I will always believe, that Bigfoot is something beyond our understanding. And I will quote someone who was always a diehard aper. He's my friend Ken Gerhardt. And the other night we had a conversation. And he said, you know what, in my heart of hearts, this is what he told me. And maybe he'll get upset with me. I don't know. He's at a conference right now. I don't know. I don't think he's paying attention to me. So I'm going to say what I'm going to say. But he told me on the phone, he said, I think that it's beyond our comprehension. Where we're at right now as human beings, we cannot comprehend it. I fully agree with that. And I think
I agree with that too.
Yeah, I think that we're just so far apart from the mainstream, though, that we are so far apart that there is no point in us pandering to the mainstream at all. Because when we try to compromise, we get derailed. I know people who will sit there and tell me I think that I am crazy because I even believe that there could be a physical Bigfoot. So why pander to it at all? I mean, go ahead.
So when I was married and I was going through what I call my spiritual awakening, and I was starting to sense more things than I had before, my husband thought that I was going crazy, and he wanted me to talk to the pastor at our church. So I did. I went and talked to the pastor, and I was very honest with him and told him everything. I told him everything. And I said, so what do you think? And he says, I think it's great. And I was like, okay, so I'm okay? You think I'm okay then? And he said, listen, he said, I'm jealous. He said, there are things that Jesus showed to his disciples that they never tried to explain to anybody else, because nobody would understand it. He showed them things that are beyond what other people could even fathom or comprehend. He says, I'm jealous that you're getting to experience some of those things. Even if it's just a little bit. He goes, I am jealous of that. He says, but your heart is in the right place. You're going the right way. And the fact that you can do that, he says, I'm jealous. I wish I could do that. So, he was explaining to me about that, and about how Jesus did show the disciples things that they really didn't even try to share with other people because they knew they wouldn't get it, couldn't comprehend it. So there's more. There's always going to be more. There's going to be more. And it's just like going to school. When you start kindergarten, there's first grade after that, second grade after that, and you just keep going because there's always going to be more. And that is always the way it's going to be for as long as we live. And when we die, we're still living. We'll still be ourselves outside of the body.
That's right. Yeah, you're right. Absolutely. So you do have a Christ-based belief. Do you believe in Christ? And this isn't a religious question. It's just, do you believe in Christ?
I do, actually. Yeah, absolutely.
What about this? But Jen, I'm going to ask you a question. Because I like what, you're a very intelligent person, and I want to know, just between us, although there's 400 people listening in the chat, and there'll be thousands of people that'll watch this later, but between you and I, we're having a conversation here. Do you believe in Christianity as the religion, or do you believe in Christ as the being? Like, what have you learned? What do you study when it comes to that? Bigfoot and all that aside.
Just as a personal person growing up in Christianity and being in a split home where my parents divorced, since I was exposed to Lutheran, and then just like regular Christianity, and then my mom married into a Jehovah's Witness. So I had all kinds of different kinds of Christianity coming at me, different weekends, right? I was going to different churches all the time, hearing different things, and it got me really scared and confused about who was telling me the right thing here, because they're all saying they're the right one. And as a 6-year-old girl, I was trying to figure out which one was the right one so I could save the other 2/3 of the people that I loved in my family from making the wrong choice. So I was drilling my grandmas. I had 3 grandmas. I had 2 real grandmas and 1 step grandma, but they were all my grandmas. And I thought grandmas are smart, so I'll go ask my grandmas. And I was asking them different questions about your religion and what to believe and how do you know that's right and da-da-da. And in the end, I got really upset because it's not fair. It shouldn't be this hard. All of them think they're doing the right thing. And if 2/3 of them are wrong, that's not fair. It shouldn't be this hard. And it made me scared of what God is, that this shouldn't be this hard. It's not fair. They think they're doing the right thing. They're following the right path. And they're all saying 2/3 of them are wrong. And so in the end, I said to my step-grandma, I got really upset in the end. And after a long time of asking questions over a period of time, I finally just got upset. And I said, but how do you know you're right? How do you? She goes, I just know. And I said, yeah, but what if you die and you get done and you get to the end? And they said, sorry, it was the Lutherans who had it right. Too bad for you. And she just realized, oh gosh, her other grandma's a Lutheran. I get what's going on here. She realized, and she goes, oh no, they're all right. We're all right. And I'm like, that's not what you've been saying. That is not it. And by that time I was mad and I was upset, and this doesn't seem like a fair thing to me. And I was mad about it. And I thought that was a very end thing. So my idea of God was altered by this whole experience of being everyone else is wrong and da-da-da-da-da. So as an adult, and when I asked questions even of the pastors, I asked scary questions that they didn't know the answer to, and they would just believe it. I'm like, it doesn't make sense. I was very logical. Please explain. I need to know how this works. And I was really analyzing things. And it scared people. It scared adults because I was asking questions they didn't know the answer to.
Yeah, me too.
And so as an adult, when I had anxiety disorders, and I was scared of this and scared of that, and I had to face my fears because it was paralyzing me. And I got to a point that I had to do it. A lot of people have the freedom of just avoiding their fears and going on without looking at them. That's really nice for them. But when it gets so bad that you are paralyzed, you have to face them. Okay? And so I had to face them, and I had to confront them and look at them, and I had to re-look at this whole religion thing and faith and what is God and what is Jesus and all those ideas. That those were scary things to me because it wasn't fair. And so when I looked at it again, and I started to get away from it, and I had to get away from the idea of Christianity in order to unlearn what I had learned, because it wasn't right. My idea of God, my idea of Jesus wasn't right. It wasn't my friend. It wasn't my father. It was unfair in my idea of it. So when I went into narrative spirituality, it took me down another path that I didn't think was Christianity. And in the end, I ended right back up at Jesus again. Right back up at the Creator again. Okay? So he took me on another path that I didn't know where I was going, and it still ended up there, if that makes sense. All things are connected in some way, shape, or form. You just don't know how they are. We're not meant to know how they are. We just need to know that everything is interconnected, interrelated, and interdependent on each other. And so, for me, I don't have those fears anymore. I don't fear Jesus. Jesus is wonderful. I have visions of that. When I do energy work and all that, I have very spiritual experiences. And and it's not limited to Jesus. It's everything. It's very much like what you explained. It's hard to explain to people who've never experienced it. It's so far beyond the feelings of love and joy that I could ever describe to anybody that they would ever understand. It's a beautiful thing.
The thing I always say too is not everyone can be right and not everybody can be wrong, because in Islam, and I argued with one of my friends the other day. He works for me. He's Islamic, actually a couple of them, and they always like to tell me, oh, the word of God has never changed in Islam, blah 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 blah. Well, I disagree with that. That's their belief. That's fine, whatever. But I will say this. I asked them both this question. I was like, why are there 26 different types of Islam? Oh, but we all agree. Right? No, you don't, because you kill each other. The Shiite and the Sunni don't all get along. It's very hypocritical. And then they say, well, we never had slaves. I'm like, yeah, the Ottoman Empire was one of the biggest slavers in the entire world that ever existed, as far as we know. And there's still slavery, Boko Haram. I mean, it's still going on. I mean, it's the same thing with Christianity. There's so many different types. Like, who's to say that this one is right, this one is wrong? And then there's so many different types on the spectrum of every type of religion. I mean, Judaism has multiple types of religions. There's Orthodox. They don't agree. And then there's some that are more secular. I mean, the Abrahamic faith is huge, and it all has, if you lump them together as Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, which I think that that's not really correct to do that, but a lot of people do that. But if you were to add, just calling the Abrahamic faiths, and then Hindu and Buddhism are cousins too, they're cousins with each other. Mm-hmm. One literally spawned the other. But when you look at, they don't want to accept that, but that's the truth. I don't care what they believe. It's what it is. The Christianity, when you look at it, so many different ways to believe. And each one has its own interpretation of the Gospels. And then they all want to reject the codices because they weren't put into the Bible. Here's a funny thing. I argued with an evangelical about this, and I like to argue religion with people at times. It's kind of like one of my pastimes, I guess. But I was arguing with this guy. Well, it was a guy and a girl, and they said, "Well, those books aren't in the Bible because blah 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 blah." I said, "No, those books aren't in the Bible because of the Catholic Church, which you reject. So if the Catholic Church, well, then that's I got to look into that." And then the girl said, "Well, the Catholic Church did some things right." And I was like, 5 minutes ago, you said there was nothing right about them. And that's why Martin Luther, started the Reformation. And they began to argue with me about that. And I said, look, you can't have it both ways. That's the problem with religion in general. And people, when I told them, I said, let me ask you a question. And these are friends of mine. I'm not going to put them on the spot here. Well, he's more my friend, but I know her through him, and I don't want to be ugly or rude. But I said, I think you're missing a big part of Christ's ministry. As somebody mentioned earlier in the book that John says that Christ taught so much that all the books in the world couldn't fill it. Now, I agree with that. I agree that Christ, because we have records of him going to Tibet. We have records of him going all the way to Japan. He was in China.
You know that he came here?
He was in India. Yeah, a lot of people say that he came here. I'm of the belief that he came here after the resurrection. And I have...
So there's stories about it through the Oneida tribe. There's stories about it.
The Aztecs, I believe that he was Quetzalcoatl. I believe that his teachings got distorted by Cuauhtémoc, and one of his priests, or his ancestor, I guess, one of his, whatever. I can go into that. One day I will go into a whole, because there was a Spaniard that learned with the Aztecs, and he wrote down everything in a book, and it's too long to sit here and go through all of it. But when you start to look at, the description of this man who was wounded, he had the countenance of Christ. He came with white hair. He administered to them.
And a beard.
A beard, yeah.
The beard. Do you know native men did not have facial hair ever?
Well, and typically the ones that did, they plucked it. They plucked it.
No, they didn't. Those are people who have...
That's actually not true.
With...
They did actually pluck their hair. They didn't grow beards like we do. Now,
okay,
my grandmother was native.
They didn't have beards.
Her father had very sparse hair on his face, but he plucked it. What little that they had, they plucked it. Well, that was also, there was a reason for that, and that was body lice. It was very practical. A lot of the things that we take at value of like a spiritual thing, it's not really, it's just a practicality. Like not eating shellfish. That's because you can get very sick.
Same thing with, I believe, pigs, right?
Yeah, pigs had trichinosis, and you would get very sick. So they said, it's a filthy animal because you couldn't undercook it even a little bit because you'd get very ill. And we haven't had really bad outbreaks of trichinosis since the 1960s here. But the point is that Jesus says that that's all just stuff for man. Jesus even says that we don't need days to honor God, that every day should be to honor God. You don't need the Sabbath. All this bowing and praying stuff for the Sabbath and all this. If people read their Bible, they would understand that. Now, I'm going to argue there are so many different types of natives, and we know now that there were like 37 different types of that traversed different from the Atlantic and the Pacific They all didn't come from one Bering Strait land bridge. We know that now. Heck, they had an article about it in Discover magazine. You can go back and see that there were Polynesian and more Northern Asiatic and more Southern Asiatic, and they all made inroads to the United States or to the continent of North America and South America. And they came from different places. So they didn't, like a lot of tribes, you're right, they did not grow facial hair in the way we do, but some did. And a lot of them plucked it, but it was out of necessity to keep from getting lice. And they were obsessive about washing their hair too. Now, some tribes had different beliefs. Some tribes believe that they should never cut their hair. That's like the whole Samson thing, there was power in your hair. But it was a practicality.
That is another thing. That is another thing that my elder talked about. My the one who named me. He talked about the power in your hair. There's a great power in your hair. And he always said that. And he said, this is what we were told. And we passed it down. He says, do you know what it means? Do you know what it means? And I said, I don't know. And he goes, there's a great power in your hair. He said, they told it to us so that we would pass it on, but we didn't have the ability to understand what it meant at that time. But what does it mean? He says, you know what it means. And he just kept asking me, what does it mean? And I thought about it and I said, DNA. DNA are in our hair. He said, yes. And I said, well, there's junk DNA. Like 95% of our DNA is junk, what they call junk DNA, because it's inactive, it's dormant. They don't know what it's for, so they call it junk. And I don't call it junk. I call it blueprint. It's your blueprint. It's the creation that isn't done creating yet. It's not done. Right? So there's all this parts of us. Who says that maybe our DNA starts turning on different parts? Different lights in our house turn on. And we're able to do different things. More and more comes available to us as we go. I think that's all part of our blueprint. We're just not done being created yet. We haven't turned it all on yet.
Well, it has been a very interesting conversation. It didn't go, we just kind of went, whatever. But that's what happens here at Paranormal Roundtable. You never know what's going to happen. You have done a lot of work, a lot of investigating. Tell the listeners here how they can find you and your work.
Well, I'm Jen Cruz with a K, and I'm the team leader of the She Squatchers. We have a YouTube channel, She Squatchers Official. You can come see our videos and different things that we found there. That thermal video that I mentioned, She Squatchers Official. Please subscribe to our channel. We're also on Facebook and Instagram. We have a website, shesquatchers.com. And we do travel all over the country to different events, and we share what we found along the way, and that allows us to also research in different parts of the country that we wouldn't normally be able to. So we're really blessed to be able to do that. This year, however, we are super focused on doing research and field work. So we aren't doing very many events. Instead, we're going to be in the field a lot more with a film crew. So we're working on documentaries to bring out, and we can't wait for more of that to happen.
Yeah, and I would love to work with you again. You guys, like you said, you do great work, and I want to keep you abreast of what's going on in the world of Paranormal Roundtable. We are having a conference. I know you said you're going to be busy doing whatever, but if you have a chance, come down Labor Day weekend.
Where is it?
And it's going to be Fort Worth. Exactly. Tell them, Anthony, exactly where the audience and Jen. Oh, okay. Just hand him the microphone. There you go.
Okay, so the conference is going to be it's going to be in Fort Worth. It's going to be in a part. It's going to be near Lake Worth in a area called White Settlement. I believe it's called the White Settlement Convention Center. It's going to be September 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. Now, so September 1st is a Friday. That's for the VIPs. That's going to be the catered dinner / meet and greet with all the speakers for all the VIP ticket holders. And then Saturday and Sunday, it's going to be going all day. That's going to be the main conference for everyone else.
Perfect. So Texas.
Yeah, Texas. And
all
then,
right.
Saturday, Sunday, come down one of the days. You guys just come down, man, hang out, have fun. There's going to be a lot of speakers. I can't even name them all. It's going to be, who do we got? He's going to name them real quick. Name the speakers off.
All right, we got Ken Gerhard, Martin Nunley, David Weatherly, Ron Moorhead, Ann Celine, Bettina Moss, D.A. Roberts, Adam Davies, Dan Nedrello, Christopher Garitano, Lyle Blackburn, Nick Redfern, Ron Murphy, Kenny Irish, Nick Valente, Sibylla Irwin, Jessica Jones, David Spinks, and Chad Lewis.
And a few others that aren't even on that, like Brian Bowden and I think Tex. And there was a few others. I can't even remember them all. There's going to be several people there. The guys from Expanded Perspectives. Yeah, and I don't know about Tony Merkel or Steve Stockton yet. I think they might show up. But anyways, basically, it's going to be a big party. A bunch of my friends, and we're all going to talk and do things and have fun. And I don't think I'm going to have a formal speak or whatever I spoke last time. I want to give my friends a chance to just speak and do what they got to do. People can hear me talk all the time. And if you guys want to come, you're welcome to be on the panel. Or if we have room, you can do a presentation. I don't know how many people we're going to have to be able to get it all in there. But, yeah, thank you for showing up, Jen. I appreciate it. And you take care and God bless.
Thanks. You too. You guys have a good night.
Yeah, you too. So that was Jen Cruz. What do you guys think?
I thought that was very, very good. I mean, obviously it wasn't where we meant for it to go, but I think it went in a much better direction, and it was a lot more informative. I was really kind of just sat back and let you guys deal with it. And there was actually a couple things I wanted to talk about and probably ask you, Loki. I think at one point he said something about those who don't believe or those who, kind of ridicule or kind of make fun of, but don't believe, and they kind of attack those who do believe. You kind of just have to leave them alone because you're going to find out eventually. I mean, you don't really get the option to, what I'm trying to say is if you don't believe, that's only until a certain point. That's only until something happens to you and you're forced to believe. So it's you can just leave those people alone and not even worry about them, because if you do, you're wasting energy fighting a losing battle because they haven't experienced anything to wake themselves up, and until those people need to experience those things so that they can open their eyes and be like, oh, okay, this stuff is real, and that I've been poo-pooing on it and it's all been right in my face. And, they just don't want to really see what's there until they see it themselves. And that's the thing we talked about, Anthony, about how reliant we are on our senses, like our eyes or our hearing or anything like that, where we aren't willing to take any opinions or any advice from anyone else until we see it for ourselves and are forced to. And it's like she said, you can only run from your fears for so long until you're forced to confront them. And I think it's the same way with the supernatural, towards you can deny it for as long as you want until something happens to you and you're like, what the heck am I supposed to do now? There's ghosts and demons all around me, and you've been spending all this time denying it. So that's just how I feel about it, to where it's not worth spending the energy on them.
One of the things I wanted to address, abnormal investigations, and then Bernard Fox, and I consider both of you guys PRT family, and I would never, intrude upon your, move my Topo Chico over here, somewhere out of the way. It's kind of, well, I guess put it over here where it's getting crowded over here. So one of the things I was going to say is the whole praying to Bigfoot. I understand what she's saying and what she's getting at. Praying may not be the correct term because, like Bernard says, he doesn't pray to anybody but God. I'm the same way. I don't have a Lord who I have to go to other than the landlord. I guess that's what people have to do. And even when I address them, I don't go to them and go, oh, Lord, I pray ye clean the mold from our apartment. Please stop messing with us and do the right thing. No, I don't talk to them in that way. I just talk to them as what they are, and that's people. But I get what she's getting at as far as praying. I don't think she's saying that she worships rocks or Bigfoot. Now, I will say this, Abnormal Investigations said something earlier, and I wanted to address it. And these are some sticky subjects. I mean, you got to be careful what you say, right? Because, you could lose listeners and, well, listeners or money. Well, that's something that I'm not worried about, because if we tell the truth, we tell the truth. We can't run from it or hide from it. It is what it is. And so I'm going to answer these questions to the best of my knowledge. Here. There was a question that was asked by Abnormal Investigations. I'm trying to find it. Anyway, it had to do with, he says, on the seventh day, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord your God. Now, I have become very controversial in the way of how I see things and believe things when it comes to the Old Testament, in particular Genesis. Now, I believe in the Bible, but I also believe the interpretations aren't completely correct. I also know that in the Gospels, Jesus tells us that your observation of the Sabbath is for you. God isn't sitting there going like, they better be watching. I'm watching. You better be, observing the Sabbath, because if not, I'm going to strike you down. I don't believe that that's what God does. I don't believe that he sits there and worries about whether or not we go and work on the Sabbath. I do not. I don't think that God cares if you eat shrimp. Why would God have these human characteristics? And when I was in school, I went for 4 years of my life to a Christian school, Christian Science Academy, as they tried to label it. Got in lots of trouble because I asked simple questions like, why are we doing this? Why are we observing certain days? Why Wednesday? Why did we have to wear a tie that day and go to church on Wednesday night? And I was told because that's what God wants. And I'm like, God wants us to go on Wednesday night. I got in big trouble for that. And I literally told my teacher, whose name was Mrs. I probably shouldn't even say her name, I guess, Mrs. W. And I said, why does God want us to wear a tie on Wednesday in class and be extremely uncomfortable and then want us to go to church on Wednesday night? She's like, the same reason that he wants us to go to church twice on Sunday. Well, if you were Amish, they want you to not even use a car. They want you to not use electricity. But there again, we know that the Amish don't necessarily follow all of God's laws either, or they wouldn't practice powwow. Go look it up. Now, okay, Abnormal Investigation says, I believe he asked us to do this to observe the Sabbath, to show our commitment to honor and worship God and keep our covenants. What exactly do you think our covenants are? I'm asking Abnormal Investigations. Because why would Jesus tell you? Why would he say that you don't need to do that? Why does he say you don't need to eat certain foods like that? Why does he say that that what you put in your body matters little compared to what you put into what you feed the spirit? And why would he also point out that in Exodus, God became angry with the children of Israel, and when they cried for food, he sent them fiery serpents to attack them? Jesus points out, look this up. Maybe we can, or somebody in the audience can look it up. I don't have them. I don't have the Bible verses all just memorized in my head. But Jesus says in the New Testament, he says, why would a loving father, he questions it, if his children were hungry and asking for food, why would he send them fiery serpents? If that is the true God, in Jesus' mind, why would he even question it? Therein lies the rift between him and the Pharisees, Sadducees, and the Jewish priesthood. Like, he went to war with them because he was gone. He was gone for what? 18 years? he comes back, and all of a sudden he's very combative and argumentative. He says that this isn't correct. He goes into the temple. He goes after the money changers. He says that you have polluted all these things. This isn't correct. You're leading people down the wrong road, blah, blah, blah. He becomes a heretic. He's pronounced a bad guy. The Romans tell them, hey, you have a choice. The world's first known serial killer, Barabbas, rapist, murderer, thief, liar, sinful adulterer. I wash my hands. It's up to you. You get one prisoner for free for your Passover. Give us Barabbas. Give us Barabbas. And they crucified Christ and freed the murderer. That's what happened. Now, we can pretend like it didn't. We can all pretend like the media likes to dance around and say that the Romans just killed Jesus because of some sinister plot against Rome or whatever the heck the crap they want to believe. And I don't even care. I'm just being completely honest. And this person says the Noahic covenant, which is between God and all living creatures, as well as a number of more specific covenants with Abraham, the whole Israelite people, and the Israelite priesthood. Now, there you go. That's an easy one. Noah didn't live at the same time as Abraham. Long way before that. Abraham didn't live at the same time as the Israelites. Long way before that. So what are these covenants? God says he wasn't going to destroy the earth. That version of God. I say that version of God because there's another version of God that asked Abraham to sacrifice his son, and at the last minute he stopped him. But it was the Elohim that asked that. And you know, as we've talked about before, that the Elohim really adhere to the Sumerian tablets. And if you know history, that's the most important thing, folks, is to know history. Who were the Sumerians? Who inherited the Sumerian beliefs and religions? Does anybody in this room know that? The Mesopotamians. And who were the Mesopotamians? They were the Babylonians. Who conquered the Babylonians? The Persians. And who ended up taking the Israelites into captivity was the Persians because of the Babylonians. Wouldn't it stand to reason that their religion would be, because it wasn't written until 600 and something AD, or BC. Wouldn't it stand to reason when they returned to the land of Israel that that's when all this was written? And that Noah, whose name was different, I'm not going to get into the whole names and all that. It was a different guy. His name wasn't Noah. They had a different name for him. The Babylonians did. The Persians did. They all did. So the priesthood gets together. Israel no longer exists. You have Judea in the south. That's it. I think it was Levi and Judea. Now they return and they put together a history of their people. But you got to understand, this is being written by people who've been in captivity for, hundreds of years. What do they really know of their history? So they have to piece it together. And then it becomes gospel, it becomes law. Do you know that Jesus wasn't born in Judea? By the day's standard, he was a Galilean, which is north of the river. It's north of Judea. And the Judeans didn't even really accept him as one of their own. So when you look at the life of Christ, that's why I tell you, I'm not telling you to throw the Bible out and throw the baby out with the bathwater. I'm telling you to study and follow and find every scrap of information you can about Christ, the man, the Son of God, and Christ, the deliverer. The one who was killed on the cross but resurrected. Who was he? Where did he go? And what did he say in these other places? There are stories of him being in temples and ashrams all over the place. That he was chased off by the Brahmin priests. Eventually he ran afoul of them because he said the caste system wasn't correct. that part right there, I'll touch on that. One of the things that I learned about in my studies of him in India, and I talked to a friend of mine he's Indian, he's Punjabi, a great guy. His family owns a restaurant when I was growing up. Good food, good people, very devout Hindus. And he said, well, Jesus was asked to leave, this and that. There's a reason. They believe that this is what happened because he did not believe in the Brahmanistic caste system. And it's all simple. He said that anyone could transcend. You did not have to come back from the caste that you were born. You weren't stuck in a perpetual pattern on the wheel of Dharma. Now, these are words in their temple that they believe that he was there. Yeshua, Jesus. And that what he said was that it didn't matter what caste you were born as. What it mattered was when you died. That is like saying that if you were born as a black man and you die, oh, you know what? You weren't born as a white person or an Asian person or a Hispanic person, whatever. You have to come back and do it because you were bad. You were born bad. If you were born whatever caste you were in, now that's not where the problem is. What the problem is that you're not looking at how this person lived their life and how they transcended before they died, preparing the soul for transcendence. Jesus said that's what matters, not all this other stuff. The Brahmins didn't want to accept that, so he got chased off. He was there for 6 years. And I can give you this, there's a whole bunch of literature about this, fun books, the codices, the Nag Hammadi Desert. Gives me the chills when you think about all the knowledge. Folks, if you think the burning of the Library of Alexandria was an accident, it wasn't. If you believe that our history is so short, and then Cutler said something there, Saint Germain, that's a good one. Oh, I know where you're at, buddy. But one step at a time. I'm giving you this knowledge in chunks and morsels. Christ fed me and my spirit in small edible chunks to learn. I have to do the same. I can't just go, here's a giant meal, a big old steak, y'all just start eating it. Oh, last week you were on formula. Well, this week you're eating a 24-ounce ribeye. It's not how life works. And you have to understand something. Jesus was gone for a long time, almost 2 decades. Where was he? What did he do? And it's not out of the realm of possibility, because here at Paranormal Roundtable, we talk about all kinds of weird stuff. That Jesus, now, Anthony, you made a point one day. You said that was the point. What is it? The point that's not, that the Mandela effect cannot change. What was it? The way you worded it?
So we were on the subject of like the Mandela effect, and I just was kicking around like an idea of like how you can rationalize the belief in fate or destiny, but also the belief in the Mandela effect. And my idea was that yes, the events in our timeline can be changed. They can be affected through whatever process causes this Mandela effect that a lot of people experience. Yes, that's possible, but fate is certain things are just destined to happen, and they just cannot be touched by the Mandela effect, by that process. Certain events just happen in every timeline exactly the same way at exactly the same time, and they're just never going to change. Like the life, death, and resurrection of Christ. I don't believe there's any other version of that story in any other parallel universe that differs in any way, shape, or form. And maybe there are other events in the history of humanity that also don't change. But that's, that the life, death, and resurrection of Christ is the only one that I believe in my heart fully, and just is not ever going to change at all, no matter what.
And see, and now there are people who will argue this too. And this is something that I thought about the other day. If there is a multiverse, which I do believe exists, then why would there not be multiple versions of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, who all existed at the same time and continue to all exist simultaneously? Because being the Son of God, you would be very close to omnipotence just by relation. There are versions of him having lived his life in Japan and dying there. He went back home and then returned. In each one of these stories, do you think that maybe a different version of him, and I'm not saying this is what I totally believe, but I do believe in the theory of the multiverse, that Jesus is in his infinite, power of who he was, the greatest prophet, the greatest Buddha, the Savior, the one who's going to return in all the holy books. It says it in the Hindu book. It says it in the Christian book. It says it in all of them except for the Judean book. It says it in Islam. He's going to return. And he's going to set things right. But this time he's coming back. He's going to kill with his words. He's going to kill. His tongue will be a sword. Is it not possible for him to have lived multiple lives on multiple different continents and in multiple places all at one time? Why wouldn't it be? So when you stop and you think about it, that turns everything kind of on its ear. And then you start kind of going like, wow, this could be, why are there so many different versions of this story? Or was it just wishful thinking on the part of ancient Chinese, Japanese, Europeans, Africans? They all have stories of him going there and ministering to them. And then he did it again when he died. In the physical flesh, he returned. And somebody mentioned Count Saint Germain. Now, we've talked about immortals. If Count Saint Germain can do it, why wouldn't Jesus be able to do it? I look at it and I think about it all the time because I dwell on my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ and then the path that I'm supposed to take and what I'm supposed to do and where you go from here. And tonight we were talking about Bigfoot, and then it gets into this whole thing with Christ. To me, Bigfoot is not that complicated, but it is, but it's not. But Jesus, it becomes very complicated because which version do you serve? Because there are so many different versions of Christianity. That's why I believe that everyone has a piece of the puzzle and everyone is missing a piece of the puzzle. Jesus Revolution, thank you for that donation. It's very generous. So if you Barry, thank you for your donation. Susie Jago, thank you, Susie. You're awesome. Roz Cleveland, thank you. You're awesome too. Everybody that's donated. Did I miss some people here? Let me know if I missed some people.
I think Amy donated too. So thank you, Amy, for that.
Go back and look. Everybody who's donated, thank you for showing up, everybody that shows up. Clever Conquistador and Senior Noel, Abnormal Investigations, Cutler, Facing Crowd, Jim. I thank you for all of you that subscribe and put down comments, and we try to read your comments. It is easier to get your comment read if you do the super chat. That's, it's just the way it is, and I try to read everyone's comments on the super chat. And it helps the show too. But if you can't do it, you can't do it. It's not. You're not obligated to do that. Just come and show up and listen.
I also want to thank all our mods,
Mike Turner. What's up, Mike?
And everybody in the chat that kind of, if there is a question that we don't get to, all the helpful people, all our helpful paratroopers who help answer those questions, and they talk to anyone who has questions in the chat for us, and we're so helpful and thankful that you guys are such a cool community that talk to each other and are pretty open about having discussions, even if you guys don't agree with each other. It makes, I think, everyone here proud that we can say that, like, our community, at least in the chat, isn't harmful, is pretty open, and is willing to look at things from a new perspective, and is willing, even though if they have their own beliefs, is that, you know, they're willing to at least learn and look at the whole picture. And I think that's very important to all of us. So we appreciate you guys for that.
One of the things I wanted to say too, somebody mentioned here, they said, Bernard, I know you live up there. You better show up to the conference. I better see you. Mike, I know you went to the conference over there in Florida. You better show up to my conference. I need you. I need to meet you, Mike. We need to take a picture together. The Turner brothers. You, me, and Curtis. None of us are related, but we're all... I'm basically Hispanic, and you're black, and he's a blonde-haired white guy. I think we'd make a great trio. We need to sing the blues together, brother. Cutler, I hope you show up to the conference. You always have so much to add. Luna Blue, Sugar Britches, Michelle Collins, everybody. I hope you can all show up at the conference.
Michelle just bought her VIP ticket, so she's going to be there.
I'm stoked. I'm ready. I'm so looking forward to this, dude. Even more than last year.
I'm actually really excited to see.
I'm just anxious because I'm anxious, you know. And Loki, what happened, dude? You were like, you look thinner, like you lost weight, but then you shaved up here, and now you're. Now you look like. You and I have that same issue. We can't. I've done that. Like I start shaving, then
Well, the beard is a process. You know, if you go too high, then you have to go all the way up to the ears. So you know, it doesn't ever look right at the beginning, and then it takes like a week to start.
Yeah, you got to get it back to where it was. I'll see you wearing the Austin Gambler shirt.
Oh yeah,
that's a bull riding. Show them that shirt. Close with that. That's got a zombie dude. That's a pretty cool shirt, man. They didn't have none my size.
Hang on, let me zoom in on it.
You can zoom in on that. That's a Gamblers. They're an Austin-based PBR team. You got to move it over a little bit. The wording blocks it.
Yeah, that's a good show too. We all went to that bull riding event.
They're having one tomorrow at Scruggs.
Oh, are they?
Yeah.
That was a good one.
Yeah, they're having one out tomorrow at Scruggs, but I don't want to go because I just got too much to do. I got a lot of work to do on the show. I'm trying to finish up the books. Somebody says here, I will say this till the day I die, evil, wicked, demon entities fear the holy name of our Savior, Master Jesus Christ. Those will never fear. That's true. Let me, and before we go, I want to tell everybody, I'm going to tell you a story. I don't want you to leave yet. We're not done. I know this is a long show here, but I'm going to tell you tonight. There's a story I got, and it'll whet your appetite for what's coming. So, see if I can find it here. Okay, I got a bunch of them about this crawler, pale crawler, changing directions here. Pale crawler humanoid. And some of these I was actually going to save, and I was going to talk about them in two different. We were going to do one called like Aliens Among Us. Wasn't that what we called it or something? And it was about different types of creatures, people, entities masquerading as people. That's what it was, and it kind of bled into one that we were going to do about reptilians, and then I thought, you know what, we can break that up into two different ones because some of them are pale crawler humanoidal creatures. I will give you one right now, right out the gate. This one came from a friend of mine. This was in San Diego. This was a security guard, and this one's creepy. It's a freaky story. And I want to tell it to you. I wanted to tell you on Tuesday, but I can tell you now. The guy that gave me this story, he used to live here in Austin, but he was originally from California, and he's ex-Marine. He's a great guy. He was in San Diego. Are you okay, dude?
Yeah, my mic is messing up for some reason.
Your mic is messing up because you're moving around like a 4-year-old toddler who can't sit still.
The energy
trying to fix my mic.
He drank a bunch of Monsters, or what is that? Ghost?
I haven't drank it yet.
And you already acting like that?
Well, I'm just trying to fix my mic.
Oh my gosh, it's just, he's over there like it's like a Thriller video. Like, dude, I'm over here like, what's going on here? Sorry, folks, I'm getting distracted here by this man-like child. So, it just Stop, please. Sit still.
My mic.
I understand that, but you made.
It's
You-
not
we-
going anywhere.
Just sit there. It's right there in front of you.
Do it.
Are you able to comprehend that mic is right there?
I'm trying to fix my mic. That's all I was doing. I don't understand.
But you're moving
You
a
guys don't
lot.
understand what's going on.
Okay.
I'm not
He
moving.
fixed it though. That,
Okay, here it is. Here's the story. So anyway, folks, this guy was a security guard out in San Diego now, and he was in a very bad area. I don't know. This was back in the early 90s, and that complex could have changed over whatever. It was a very bad place. It was full of gang members, and some of these gang members ended up doing some really bad things and ended up in the news and all kinds of stuff. So, yeah, it was a very bad place, and he got along with the people there for the most part. He was like more about just surviving. Trust me, I've done government housing for years, and it is sometimes just a matter of survival. You try to be as friendly as you can with the people that live there so they don't ambush you. But by the same token, you know, you have to be respected. Now, you have to be respected. You have to give respect, get respect type thing. And this guy, I knew him personally, so I knew what kind of person he was. And he gave me a story. And I've had this story for a while, but a friend of mine said, hey, man, this guy, you know, we knew back in the day. Look, you might know him. He actually worked at the club with us. His name was Miguel. I don't know if you remember him. He was Chico's friend. He used to hang out the door all the time. But he was ex-Marine. And he hung out with Rocky. Remember Rocky? Lispy Rocky?
I don't remember.
He used to work at Inferno.
Who you're talking about though? I don't remember that.
But do you remember him?
Yeah, I remember both of those other guys.
Those goofy guys. Anyway, there was a little pack of them. They used to hang out together. And anyway, this guy, he was a young kid when he was out there working at the club, and he's several years younger than me. But he went out to San Diego. He went back home because he had met a girl, and when he was there, and he got back with her. So he ended up working government housing out there, and he was told by a couple guys, and they're gangbangers. They're going to tell you something, some kind of BS, and maybe it's true, maybe it's not. But somebody had vandalized the laundry machines. And, of course, these couple of guys that told him this, they were dealing massive amounts of drugs, okay? They're not going to be breaking into laundry machines. And he said, look, one of my primos, that's how you say Spanish, is your cousin, is slang for cousin. He said, had something weird happen to him. When you go into that place, be careful. He didn't elaborate. He thinks, the guards there's 2 guards there. He goes through there on a patrol. He's basically a captain. He's thinking that, hey, these guys are tipping me off that there's somebody in there that could be trying to hurt us. So when he shows up, he walks in there with 2 guards. What they see in the laundry room blows his mind. It looks like something white strung along the top near the ceiling, about a foot from the ceiling, in between the wall and one of the dryers. And it was one of those dryers that sits on the top. And the dryer door was kind of moving, and it looked like something stuck to it. When they shined the light on it, they heard this kind of noise. I can't do it the way he did it, but he described it as like a lighter burning paper mixed with like chewing gum. It's the best way he could describe it to me. And what appeared to be a head popped up, and then it kind of folded into almost like a ball, but then immediately elongated and dropped down. And it looked like an alien. The way he described it was a gooey, wet, white-looking alien-type creature. And its arms were extremely elongated, and they kind of went back up into what was the upper torso, shortening themselves, and then it kind of got down and kind of made like a clacking noise. They did see teeth. The teeth looked like they were connected to the body of itself. And he described that if you guys have seen Ultron, you know how he has the teeth, that kind of just metal.
It's like no lips, basically.
No lips, yeah. That's basically what he said. Because I said, it sounds like Ultron. What he saw, that's what he saw in that laundromat. And this thing had obviously been hanging out in there and hiding at night. And like I said, it was in a bad area where nobody even would go to wash their freaking clothes because they didn't want to get robbed or shot or whatever by the hoodlums that lived there. And the 2 guys that told him that, they had no interest other than to be nice. The last thing those guys needed was for the security to get hurt, and then a bunch of cops start looking at them and then saying, hey, look at what's going on over here in this complex, terrible place. Let's go raid it and get rid of all the riffraff. So the security, he told him, he said, look, man, we don't have anything against you, be careful. There's something in there. He went back to these guys a couple days later and he said, dude, did you know what was really in there? And they said, no, we just heard reports of this weird creature crawling around in the area, and it was hanging out in a vacant apartment. And then sometimes it would go and be in the laundry room in the back because people wouldn't go in there. Because at one point that was where people were going and doing drug deals. Then it got to where nobody would go in there, and that's where it was at, almost like a spider. So that right there, I don't know. He said him and the guy right immediately behind him got the best look, and they ran. The other guy that was with him didn't even go inside the building and really didn't see it. He just ran with them because they're all armed and they're running, so he's going to run too. But as far as I could tell, it was a pale crawler humanoid. Now, they didn't really see it move around, but he did do this. He did take and field some reports from the local people who had claimed they had seen this thing. One woman in particular claimed that it came from the beach, from the water. And she said that her children had seen something like that come out of the water. Kind of brings up my dilemma about how we were gonna do the show for Tuesday. Encounters with a pale crawler, humanoid, rake, whatever you want to call it, but rake we know is a creepy pasta term or whatever. Or are we going to talk about the inhumanoids from the ocean? Because they seem to kind of blend together. But you also have the reptilian aspect, and then you have aliens walking among us. So we're not exactly sure how we're going to do this coming show. It may be the beginning of like a 3, even a 4-part series on these creatures. We're not real sure. But that's what's going to happen, and we're going to talk about that. Another story, and don't let me forget, guys, next week when we get on the air, next Friday, don't let me forget about the Easter bunny from Tyler. Not Taylor, where I'm from, but Tyler. The Easter bunny from Tyler. It's a crazy story, and I got it, what was it, the day of Easter, wasn't it, Anthony? And I never got to tell that story. I'm telling you right now, it was sent to me by Jennifer. I have not forgotten about that story. I told you I was going to tell you the story, but I didn't, and I apologize, but I will get to that. Also, I wanted to give a shout out to 2 of our favorite restaurants. One is Dos Mary's. Mm-hmm. I mean, they serve all day breakfast there. And I told them I would give them a shout out because they make the best dang omelet, and then they don't put any salt in it just for me. They're nice. The other place is the Vietnamese place. What's it called?
Sunflower
Vietnamese. We met the owners the other day. They're very nice people, good people, and they do the same. They make me my chicken curry stir fry, and it is unbelievably good, and they don't put a bunch of salt in it for me, and I appreciate that.
They also have this sizzling hot plate, which comes from, I'll just say a volcano or something. I mean, it's just a nightmare of...
It is so hot. Like, I ate the right side of it because it's healthy. It's all meat and vegetables and no carbs, So I'm eating it, and then I'm like, oh, good. Now I'll start on the left side. After 20 minutes of eating, it still burned my mouth. And I think that's part of the appeal. They come out and they're like, how was your meal? And I was like, I can't talk. And like, oh, we did a good job. Yes, that was our goal. To burn me? Yes, to destroy your mouth.
We call this the Pompeii experience.
And then they walk away. Not to be confused with the Hot Pocket, which is the outside destroys your mouth. And then there's a cold, hard rock ball center reminiscent of everyone's ex that just hates you and defies the logic of the microwave. How they can make something that can burn you and freeze you in the same little rectangle, I have no idea. It's just one of those mysteries. Maybe we'll discover and talk. We'll talk about it and discover some answers on.
I think we should do a whole show about the Hot Pocket.
About the Hot Pocket mystery.
It's definitely a conspiracy that I've been fielding questions about.
And here's the thing too. Loki's on here right now. So while we got Loki on here, Loki he's been on the show and he's talked about your encounter with the black-eyed children.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, one of the things we didn't get into in depth was the story of the goat creature thing that you and Chief saw years ago.
Yeah.
With Will Barger Bridge. So go ahead and tell that story before we cut out.
All right. So we would go to the edge of the bridge is typically where we would go, and like we would always walk by. We'd have to go past the bridge because it was the school was right there, right? So we were in Manor, and we'd cut down this bridge to go into Manor to go to the store after school, or between practice. You have like a later basketball practice or something, and so we would all hang out after school, and so we go down this bridge, and somebody would always bring it up. There's a goat man down there.
Goatman Bridge, yeah. I heard it even in Taylor.
This is where it is. This is down there is what it is, and so we would throw sticks, we'd mock it, and
throw rocks.
Yeah, rocks, and do whatever to try to antagonize it. And then one day, we look down there, and something is just standing there, and it's like standing. You know how goats stand up on their hind ends sometimes. Mm-hmm. So it could have been like that, but it seemed like it was a little taller than a regular goat. And it was pretty far away. It was like, because you're on a bridge, and so you're looking down into where the water would be, or, below you, and probably 100 feet back. And here in this area in Texas, we have like vines and branches that hang from trees and stuff. Like, and they're not like the vines that you can cut and there's water in them, like on
Indiana Jones or something.
Yes.
Vines. They're just different. There's like grapevines or whatever, and they're huge like that, but they're thing. But that's what I remember is it was leaning and shaking into one of those vines and just causing all kinds of ruckus trying to get our attention, and we all stopped and looked at it, and there had to have been like 6 or 7 of us hanging out, going to the store or whatever between whatever we were doing that day, and we saw it, and we had teased it for months and trying to find out what it was, and then it just, I don't know why we saw it that day, but we saw it, and it was just crazy too, and we would never want to go down. And then I remember we went there at like a school dance, and everybody snuck out, and you'd be like, hey, we're going to go check out where that goat man is. And so everybody snuck over there, and it was late at night. And we also saw something that night too. It was like something shaking and wiggling around in there. And it's like, I don't know how to describe it. You know how like a regular forest where you see the trees and
I know, I've been there.
And the leaves are all on the ground, so it's not like grass is anywhere. And so it's like a barren. When you look down in there, it's kind of barren. It's kind
sometimes it's got water and sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah, sometimes it does and sometimes it does. And it just, I don't know. It's just like a weird sense about it. The canopy's so tight that you don't see grass and all that. And it was like in the same spot. And every time we saw it, it was just.
How tall do the trees get out?
They're pretty tall because you're on the bridge, and then so your canopy is probably like another 40 feet up or something. Yeah. So you're looking down. Yeah. You're looking down like another. I think
30 the shortest
feet.
Ones are about 20 foot if you're on the bottom. Because I had some friends. See, now what you're talking about is crazy because my hometown is Dogman, but they don't call it Dogman. They call
real
it
close.
Werewolf. Yeah, your town and my town are what, 10 miles?
Yeah, 12-minute drive.
It's barely 12 miles. What's crazy though is that area. Now I had a friend who lived near what is that little bitty town? It's not a town. It's like you drive to Rice's Crossing. Mm-hmm. They lived on the other side of Rice's Crossing when we were growing up. Near where was Jimmy's bar at back then? There was that place called Gallup Rodeo right there. I mean, not what's that? The rodeo place right there. It used to be there when we were young, and we'd go there. They had events and stuff, and that guy hung himself from that one. It was haunted. It was haunted. People would see that guy hanging there. Anyway, there was a bar there, and my cousin's cousin. Can't ask Jimmy because he's locked up for the next 10 years. But anyways, that place is extremely haunted, and there was this like area. You remember when we would drive through there, and the canopy was just like covered over, and it was the halfway point, basically Rice's Crossing between our two towns. Mm-hmm. And everybody would talk about Goatman Bridge. Let's go to Goatman Bridge. And we knew about it in Taylor, and we went out there, and a friend of mine started peeing off the bridge and thinking he was cute. My friend Dave, everybody did that. I know. That was the dare, go out there to Goatman Bridge. And then the circle right outside of Taylor was where you would go to fight. And sometimes we'd fight guys from your town. We'd fight guys from Bartlett, Thrall, Thorndale, Rockdale, Georgetown. And, everybody would come and we'd settle our beef, Sometimes it would start on the gridiron. And you'd be like talking trash. And you'd be like, okay, well, meet me next week over there at the circle. It was in between Rice Crossing and Taylor. Well, people claim to have seen a weird entity there, and nobody was really sure what it looked like. But when you went to Wilbarger Bridge, you knew that was the Goatman. And I actually got a report years ago, and I think I talked about this when Chief was on the show, was near New Sweden. And New Sweden's right outside of Manor, and that church right there, somebody was driving along, and a goat-looking man-type creature walked almost right in front of their car. And they said it looked like it wasn't even paying attention. Then it looked up, and they said it had horns and everything. Anyways, a friend of mine, Dave Hernandez, he went out there, and he tried to take a leak off of the bridge, and then we all said, let's jump in the car, and we leave him. So my friend Juan was like, okay, let's go. So we all jumped in the car and left him, and my friend Kendall was behind us. And he starts running, trying to open the door, and he hasn't even pulled his pants up. When we took off and we turned back around, and I'm talking about the other side of Wilbarger, not on the main highway, on 290, but the other road that's back there where there's kind of like a neighborhood.
The actual Wilbarger.
The actual, where
the creek is.
The creek is, yeah. So when we turned around, and back then there wasn't cops everywhere, it wasn't nothing. If you got there at 2 o'clock at night, it wasn't nothing. It was rural. It was dark, one of those street lights.
There's a lot of history in that Wilbarger
Very scary area.
Because him and that other guy, the Rogers guy, they were like the first settlers for that area. So and
you're talking about Hornsby?
Yeah, Hornsby Bend, and then Warburger, and Mr. Warburger actually got scalped out there.
And Hornsby's grandson became the famous baseball player. Yeah, he was the catcher for the Tigers. He played with Ty Cobb. Yeah. So anyway, what's crazy though is when we turned back around, this dude was crawling on the ground crying. What he claimed he saw, I can't verify, and I don't know, and I never really put a lot of validity into it because he was hysterical. He was crying. Now he's a big tough guy, and you see him pictures on his Facebook. He's at the gym. I'm at the gym, lifting a bunch of weights. I'm strong. I'm like, you still cried at Wilbarger Bridge. Anyway, point being, but a lot of people did. A lot of people got scared, So we left him there. We pulled a little trick on him. We left him. When we came back, he was crying, and for like 2 weeks, he never talked about it. And then he told his girlfriend, and when she broke up with him, Carmela, she ratted him out and said, hey, he said that he saw a goat walking around on 2 legs. That's what he claimed. And I never put much stock into it, but when you go back and you listen to the accounts, there was a rancher, and I can't remember his name. He was on one of these shows years ago about the paranormal, and this was something that Linda Godfrey had actually discussed with me a few years ago. We were on the phone and we were talking about encounters because there was a Dogman encounter off of 290 coming out of Elgin, in between Elgin and Manor, which used to there was nothing there. Now there's all these houses and stuff being built there. There's subsidized housing, everything. But she said
nothing not there now.
No, it's nothing not. Yeah, it's everywhere. Yeah. But there at one time, Elgin to Manor, and it was so dark. There were no lights anywhere. I mean, it was just dark. It was a good place to get abducted by aliens. But you're driving along,
and that's where we had that alien.
That's another one. That's another. That area was known for people seeing lights. And actually, the guy who's my friend, I saw the Dogman with, his brother claimed to have seen a UFO in that area. Well, anyway, this guy's driving along, and he sees this werewolf-looking thing, and I think Linda put it in one of her books. And we talked about this the other night, Anthony. I can't remember the book that it was in, but it came up to the window, and I asked Linda at that time. I said, "Do you think maybe it was a goat man?" And she's like, "Why do you say this?" I said, "Well, there was a guy who was a rancher. He was an African American guy. I can't remember his name, but he owned some land right there. What is that road? Is it 6 or not 6? What is that road when you're coming down Rice's Crossing going into Manor from Taylor? The back way. There's a bunch of cotton fields, but then you hit some woods, and then you hit like a bunch of ponds, and then there's a big creek. It's a county road. 970? Is it nine?
I think it's 973 or
973.
Yeah, it might be
right. It's 973. That's what it is.
Yep.
Yeah, because I once wrecked I took a Chevy S10 and flipped into went through barbed wire and flipped into a tank, and it began to sink, and I had to get out. And then the girl I was with, she thought we were drowning, and I got out, and it was like waist deep. Luckily, we didn't die because we hit the mud. It just kind of went, you know. But I had to walk, you know, home, and being 16 and had already seen the Dogman, I was terrified on that walk. And you got the Goat Man down there, the Dogman down there. You don't know which one is going to kill you. And this girl wouldn't stop crying because she skinned her leg or whatever, and it was horrible. And I was driving, and we were horse playing and whatever. And my other friend was stubborn, and he sat in that truck and wouldn't get out. And it was his uncle's truck, and then he tried to tell him that he's the one that was horse playing that caused it to happen. But anyway, that whole area right there is just creepy. But that guy owned some land right in there, and I saw a sign the other day that it was like a couple of years ago, Patsky Realty was selling it. And I thought, that's got to be where he lived. But he had 20 some odd acres there, and he swore up and down that he would see a goat-like creature and that there was demonic activity at his house. And I remember watching him. He was on TV, on a show, and so me and Linda had talked about it. It was years ago, like 20 years ago. But me and Linda talked about it, you know, like several years ago, and she goes, I said, do you think maybe that account could have been a goat man? And she's like, no, I really think it was a dog man because of the description. I'm like, well, they're both in the same area. And some people would argue that they're the same. It's just some trickster entity that does it. But I would argue against that because Will Barger is definitely known for the goat man. And on the other side of Rises Crossing is Dogman. And you don't see Goat Man over there. You see Dogman.
And you don't hear about Dogman on the other side.
And you don't hear about Dogman on the other side. Yeah, so I really think that there's some sort of, whatever, werewolves on this side, satyrs on this side, whatever. But the creepy thing is that you guys saw it on more than one occasion, and my friend Dave really believes that he saw it.
Well, my favorite thing about this whole story is that anytime there's a horrible area
Didn't
where
happen to you?
no one should be over there, no one should be doing anything bad over there, you can guarantee that there's a bunch of teens doing bad stuff over there. And that's why every story is always a tale to tell children to scare them, is because if you let them just do what they want, they're going to go to the worst areas and do the dumbest stuff and get themselves hurt and scared.
Well, look, Bernard Fox just said, I want to know more about the ghost Wolf and friends picked up at Devil's Backbone. Well, yeah, Devil's Backbone is a haunted place, but that didn't stop us from going and running around out there all the time. And now I didn't want to find anything really, but I had friends that were like, hey, let's go out there and working at the club and have a reputation for you're supposed to be this badass, and you go, oh, no, I'm not going out there. There's some ghosts out there. I better not. So I would go out there because my friends wanted me to go out there.
Peer pressure.
Peer pressure. We know all about that. But yeah, I went out there to Devil's Backbone, and I had some weird stuff happen out there. Man, not the least of which, this is a story, I was talking to you about this the other day, Anthony. I don't think I ever told this one. There was a couple of them that I'd said I had never told. And which one? There were two of them. What was the one that you said I had to go ahead and tell it? And we were talking about it the other day. And I said I had never told this one because I didn't know if it was correct, if I should tell, because it was somebody else's account, but it happened, and I was there. I didn't, because this person's sort of unstable, and and they ended up like having to have therapy, and so I didn't want to. Remember, I can't remember which one it was, but I told you about it a couple days ago, and there were two different ones, and I'm trying to remember which one it was. I told you. I know the story.
Was it one of them that you said that you didn't believe at first?
Yeah. There's that one. I don't know if it's polite to even, I don't know if I should do that or not, put somebody on the spot like that. But because this person, I know they sometimes watch the show, and it might be, I know that their stepbrother does, so I don't want to get into the whole, hey, Wolf was talking about you the other day, something that caused trauma to somebody, But, there were a lot of stories in these towns that we grew up in one of the things I remember, you remember where our friend used to live out there in the middle of nowhere, and he had that house that his dad built or whatever. And then he had that weird.
That was in Wahlberger Creek.
Yeah, that whole area.
Yep.
But driving out there, man, I remember one time we were driving out there and we were going, and he was always driving way too fast.
Yep.
And I think we were with Josh or Kale or one of your buddies from Josh and we were driving and he was like, "Can you slow down?" He's like, "No, we got to. I'm gonna be late for work." And he's with me. I'm his boss, and I'm like, "I think if we're gonna be in trouble, I think I can handle it. I can tell him, hey, something happened." And we were coming around a bend, and I remember seeing something big and hairy kind of come up and move like that really quickly. And I looked, and it was gone like that. So
the women out there look like that.
Yeah, and so I'm sitting there going like, what was that? But it kind of got down back on all fours, and then they didn't really see it. So I didn't really count it, but I was going over with my wife how many times I think I've been in close proximity to Bigfoot, but I never really got a good look at it. One was the wood knocks out by the lake. The other one was when me and her were at Row Lane. The other one was when I was a kid, as 11 years old, and then at a party where a bunch of people claimed they saw Bigfoot, and that may have been one too. But then I was thinking about it. There's another one, and this one was out at Devil's Backbone, and I always wondered. Me and Scorpion, to this day, he swears it was Bigfoot. I don't know. I saw red eyes low to the ground, which would indicate some sort of like canine or cat type creature. But when we were driving, those rocks at that road right there, they get so big that it's not gravel. They're like this big, folks. It's not gravel, okay? Those are small little rocks or small boulders, whatever. And so you run over one and it spits it out of your tires. And I had off-road tires on that Chevy. And it spit it out. And I remember like something moving really quick and going into the brush. And I looked over and it was on his side. And, Scorpion, he's not a scaredy cat or whatever, but he yelled like, "Ah!" And I was like, "What was that?" He goes, "It was Bigfoot." And I looked over at him, and all I could do was like, "Well, don't scream and yell, goofball, because it's going to come and roll your window up, for God's sakes. Why is your window down, And so we rolled the window up, and we were both kind of like freaking out, and we could not go very fast. And I can't remember what road that was, but it ran parallel to Purgatory Road, which is where people would see the black Goatman thing. And I said, "Did it look Goatman-like?" He goes, "No, it looked like a giant gorilla creature. And it had red eyes." And I was like, okay. And so we got out of there. And so I was doing the math. I said, maybe that's the fifth time. I don't know. I still to this day have not seen one full on to say, Scorpion said it was all black and had red eyes. But he didn't get a good look at it either. He didn't see a snout or horns. So Sasquatch, Bigfoot, I don't know, maybe. But that road, we had to go so slow, and it was only 2 miles further, but it was excruciating. When you're going like 5-10 miles over these rocks, and you just saw some big thing.
You have your window rolled down still for some reason.
Well, he was looking at the DVD.
Are you sure he didn't just see his reflection in the mirror and was like, "Oh, Bigfoot"?
No, it bless his heart, Scorpion. I'm sorry, I'm not bagging on you, brother. I know you're in the chat, whatever, but I don't know what that was, and I personally did not get a great look at that thing. But I would say that maybe he did see Bigfoot. I mean, I don't know, but the Devil's Backbone holds a lot of secrets. And people.
What about Enchanted Rock? That's where I went camping and saw something, and I didn't. It's like the partial view of something.
I still haven't.
When you take a look, and then you catch it in your eye, in the side of your eye, and then you look at it, and then you see it, and then you don't believe you saw it.
It's a creepy place.
Oh,
Yeah, and then you look, and then you look back, and it's gone. That kind of thing happens a lot, like with this kind of deal. But that's where I saw mine. Bigfoot was at Enchanted Rock.
You saw a Bigfoot at Enchanted Rock?
I thought I saw a Bigfoot.
Wow.
I double took and it was gone. And there was nothing really out there because it was after we did the walk up and then the walk back.
Who were you with?
Just a bunch of
the main
ruffians.
No, some girls and some couple of guys. We were just doing a day trip.
I think girls too also because when I've been talking to people, I think what somebody said in the chat earlier about females attracting Bigfoot, I think that's very real. Like guys, they'll see it, and like what you were saying about Lauren Coleman with getting the dog and guns and all that. Maybe, but in my experience, when guys are with girls, they often see Bigfoot a lot more often than they do by themselves. They'll say like, "Oh, I was with a female," and a female saw it, and then you'll have to interview them. And
I think paranormal activity in general is more common with females than
I
men.
think they're
watching us, they're viewing us. Is that what it is? So if you're alone, you're not as interesting.
Maybe.
And so they're like, oh.
Well, it also might be like they could recognize your mentality, be like, oh, this guy isn't so, like, he's very dismissive of things that he doesn't understand. So he might see something and be like, oh, that's nothing. But if he's with someone who has a really high, like, oh, they get very scared of this stuff and they believe in stuff heavily, it might affect him now that he's with someone like that because he's with them. But by themselves, they don't believe in any of that stuff. It's not going to affect them. If you throw a lamp at him, he's going to be like, oh, who's out here throwing lamps at people? And not recognize as supernatural.
Well, there was an author, and he was on Unsolved Mysteries. The one with was it Robert Stack? Was that the guy?
Yeah.
Well, when he was on Unsolved Mysteries, and I never got to meet him, but I read his books, and I got to meet one of his friends, a guy that had a ranch out there named Lance. And he passed away a few years ago. He was nice enough to let us camp out there. One of the only times I really camped out in the middle of nowhere, and it was because I got talked into it by some, like you said, peer pressure friends, and we heard a pig in the middle of the night squealing like it was dying. I mean, like wee, 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 and it was bad. And I'm sitting there going like, what is killing this pig? And I didn't hear coyotes, or anything. It was just like something was killing a pig. There was no other sound but it dying. And I thought, this is why I come camping out here. And I asked Lance and his wife, and they had a little kind of a bed and breakfast place out there. Well, it's not kind of what it was. And he said, he goes, this is a haunted. He was very he took his cowboy hat off. He said, this is a very haunted place. I don't know if you boys be out there, middle of the night. You can't come running up here to my door knocking on it now if something happens. I said, no, sir, we're fine. We're going to be. And he goes, and if you got your guns, don't shoot toward the north. That's where we live, And so I said, okay. And he was a very nice guy, let us camp out there. But I heard that all night. And then I had the weirdest dream, and I'm not going to get into that, but I honestly think that it was a very, very, very haunted place, and I think something was killing that hog. I don't know what it was. But I also remember that area and him talking about Burt Wall's book. He had his book, which is it was really weird because it was a couple years, and I'm telling you, this is the absolute truth. This is a Mandela effect. They had on what is that big antique thing that I don't like by the aquarium we have in the house? I don't know what it's called, but they had one kind of like that. It's a something.
Yeah, it's like some kind of weird cabinet.
They had some books on there, and they were Burt Wall's books. But one of them was The Long Gray Tunnel, and this was 2 years before Burt Wall wrote that book. Because later on, I looked at the dates when I was reading it, and I'm like, wait a minute, this is impossible. The cowboy from the B&B, he had this book there for sale. And so it was weird. I kicked myself for not buying it that day. So I ordered his books and I read them. One of the stories was later confirmed to me by one of the people that worked in the bar there, where we saw where we had dropped off what many believe was a spirit hitchhiker. That guy who told us a story about a book that was written by Burt Wall, and we got into with the guy that was working there at the bar. We got into a discussion with him, and he said that in that part of the book where Burt talks about them ranchers having lost cattle to a creature that they cornered in a cave on the other end of the haunted valley, they back in the 60s, they encountered this creature, and he said it was a goat. In the book, he says it was a goat. But according to the guy that worked there back in the late 90s when we went in there, or I guess, yeah, it would have been 99, that bartender told us that wasn't accurate, that Burt Wall had specifically said that he left the part out about it looking like a man. And the reason he did that, and if Burt Wall's descendants are alive, I apologize if that's not what he said, but this is what the bartender told us back in 1999, and I'll tell you exactly. It was 3 people were with me when he told us this, okay? And they're all still alive, and they can verify. One was my brother. And this bartender told us, I can't remember his name, Alvin or Edward, something like that, had a beard, tall guy, reddish blonde hair, and he said that Burt Wall had specifically said that was not a goat. that it was walking on 2 legs. And that he swore up and down that that's not that one. He's dead now. He can't say one way or the other. But this is what this man told us, because I thought it was weird. He said that they tracked a creature down to its den, and it's in the book, okay. And that they actually killed this creature, and they found a den with animal bones and human bones all over this cave on the north end of the haunted valley, is what he said. And if you go to that Unsolved Mysteries episode where the kid says he was possessed by the spirit of a wolf, that happened in the Haunted Valley. And I'm not joking. I've been to the Haunted Valley. I'm sitting here right now. You can see the hair standing on my arms. I'm talking about the Haunted Valley is a very creepy place. It's one of the scariest places I've ever been at night. And I'm telling you right now, dude, I won't go camping out there. I won't go out there. I don't give a crap. They said, oh, it's built up now. People living out there. I don't give a crap if it's skyscrapers out there. I'm not going out there because the land there has something wrong with it. Okay? Burt Wall believed that, and I believe it too. And I believe that's why there's so many wrecks out there. Have you been out there and seen the locks on the deal? Okay. When you go to that place, you immediately feel like there's something crawling on you or something walking next to you. And many, many people have claimed to have seen Apache Indian, Comanche Indians in those Arroyo Canyons out there. It's some very steep drop-offs and hills. When you look at that area on a map, which me and my brother made years ago with one side Bigfoot and one side Dogman, you see how many encounters people are having out there. And then Confederate soldiers coming out of the brush and walking in front of people's cars and all kinds of weird anomalies. There were German POWs out there, and they worked them to death, and they were just killed and unceremoniously thrown into graves. You know, I mean, it's a very bad haunted place with a lot of bad dark energy. The Confederate treasury was said to be buried out there in Little Arkansas, and then Texas State took it over. Next thing you know, Texas State's flush with cash, and that's the story anyway. And then they expanded the university after they bought that land. Well, the rumors are, you know, what they are. I'm not talking against Texas State. Please don't sue me. I'm saying that that's what the rumors are, is after their purchase of Little Arkansas, then they expanded the university because supposedly the Confederate treasury was buried out there. Now, there was supposedly a monk out there named Espinosa who was in charge of a mission, and he was killed by not Mescalera. They were another type of Apache, or they called them Apache. They weren't Apache, but that's what they called them. But they killed him because they sought refuge from the Comanches, because the Comanches were killing everything, and he was brutal to them. Like he eventually killed them all. Or just set him out loose to be killed by the Comanches, and he was known for torturing people. And supposedly, when the garrison there was found murdered, it was an inside job. The story is that the gold was buried out there along with it. And I had a dream, and I kid you not, of a headless conquistador who was walking around holding his helmet, and he was trying to get me to follow him down a path. That path would have led me across a creek into Little Arkansas, which was later purchased by the university. Now, that being said, this creature that walks around out there, the goat creature, when Burt Wall talks about it in his book, he says it's a goat. He just calls it a goat. But it was confirmed to me by a person that knew him that he said no, that it wasn't a goat. It was a goat man.
Well, I would hope that there's not just some crazy goat.
A goat actually going out
I mean, come on.
Killing deer,
human
killing
bones,
dogs,
and
killing
come on.
people, killing cattle and dogs. And according to what they found in that cave, it was gruesome, and it was this goat man type creature who even spoke. And, I don't know what it said, but, very weird, very creepy place. A lot of weird. Texas is full of this kind of stuff. Okay. People say Texas, whatever, it's haunted, whatever. It is. It absolutely is. You get stories from here all the way to San Antonio and all the way down to the valley and back up. And somebody says the haunted valley on the Blanco or Guadalupe River side of the backbone. Somewhere in between, Jason, if you just look it up, I'm pretty sure you can find it. But anyway, there's all these stories, there's all this stuff to talk about, and now I have to get started on the show for you guys to have something to entertain you on Tuesday. Think about it. We may do a Sunday. We may start doing a Sunday. And we may alternate. We'll do like an hour, because statistically, TV watching time is the highest between 6 p.m., which would be our time, would be 6 p.m. Central and 9 p.m. on Sunday. And that more people are at home Sunday night than any other night of the week. So doing my homework on it, I thought, what better time to impose on people to watch my show? That's why all those cartoons started coming on Fox, because, it's what people were home. So they're like, hey, let's
take advantage of it.
Take advantage, use this block. And especially now the football is over with. There ain't nothing to do on Sundays, but, go to church, come home, and, whatever. Get scared. I'm kidding, folks. If you get scared, you get scared. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be. But anyway, let's get some winners here tonight, because we got some last week and we didn't get to mail off. And I'm getting hit left and right with people that are like, hey, I jumped to the $30 tier. If you haven't joined the Patreon, there's a $10 tier, $20 tier, $30 tier. $30 tier gets you a lot more. $20 tier gets you some. And $10 tier gets you some, but you have to wait 3 months. So you make your choice of what you want to do and how you want to support the show. That is always a good way to do it. What are we doing?
We're waiting for the broken wheel of dreams.
What are we doing? We're going to do, no, I'm saying we're going to do hoodies.
Oh, yeah, I thought so. I mean, I saw a lot of comments saying that they were pretty excited about another hoodie round.
Okay. 3 people getting hoodies today. Let's get it going here. Let me know if you haven't. Jason says, 10-4, going to find it so I can avoid it. Another haunted place is Eagles Point. That's where I picked up the hitchhiker that everybody seems to think, Bernard says all the way to Amarillo. Man, I got a story outside of Amarillo the other day. I got to go look that up. I get so many now. It's like I'm trying to. Fisher of Spam says, I've never won. Bernard, you've won a tumbler, but if you show up at the conference, I'll personally give you a hoodie. Just text me, message me, go to the conference, I'll bring you a hoodie, sir. I got too many people try to remember to mail off. Silver Knight says, I have never won. Facing the Crowd says, I have never won.
Luna Blue.
Solar Wolf.
Luna Blue.
Some nerd here named Caleb Bice. I think he said he never won.
I never won.
Well, you can just go in the store to go grab you a hoodie right now. And a book. You can just walk out with it. One of my oldest friends, so you don't have to.
I've got a hoodie already.
Yeah, you don't need to be on the wheel. James Estrada says, how many VIP conversations are still available? About 100, I think. I think we got plenty. But don't wait too long, because I'm expecting, like what happened last year, a humongous rush after the first of every month. And then they were gone by the first 2 months. If I offered some people free tickets, would that inspire you to go? Answer down here in the thing. If I said, hey, we'll comp your tickets, if I gave away 2 tickets, would that make you go? Or would you just take the tickets and not go?
Scalping them.
Yeah. Well, it happened last year.
Yeah.
We had some scalping going on. It was bad at the door. We were like, dude, look, man. But ultimately, we just let them in. We were like, you know what?
Looking for PRT tickets.
Yeah.
Sitting out there barking.
But I think it was predominantly through a particular organization, and that's what ended up happening.
We got room for one more person who never won.
One more person. We got room for one more person. If you haven't won, go ahead and.
One of you lurkers, say something.
Bernard says, thinking of selling a pistol to get a ticket. Bernard, you don't got to do all that, man. Show up
with
at
the pistol. We'll take
conference
it
and bring me the pistol.
Yeah, bring the gun.
Bring the gun.
Why give it to someone else? I mean,
it says here, Tamara says, yes, but it's a flight to Texas that prevents me from coming. Yeah, where do you live, Tamara? Jackie Hall. There you go. I've never won.
Yeah, I already got it.
Okay.
Those Oregon to Texas flights are pretty cheap though.
Yeah. They're not. It's not too bad.
Yeah.
I mean, if you start now, you might be able to walk over here by the conference time too.
Ready?
Yeah. Let's do this.
Going backwards on mine.
I don't have the mic yet. To let them know.
Solar Wolf.
Solar Wolf.
So let's write that down.
Congratulations.
Now remember, you guys got to message me and let me know your size and your address. So many people get excited and they'll give me their address and no shirt size, or vice versa. One person even left their street name out. They just gave me the address, the name of the city and the zip code, and I'm like, what am I supposed to do with this? Go ahead, spin it again.
We'll have to call Jen to astral project it. Maybe.
Have to have her remote view it, facing the crowd. And again. Luna Blue. That's 3. So we'll send these off, give me your information, and we'll put it with all the other people. And if we miss you, a week, 2 weeks go by, don't feel like you're aggravating me to message me and say, hey, I didn't get anything. Because I don't know. Sometimes I don't know if you did. So if you can message me and let me know, then I can say, yeah, okay, sorry about that. Let me make it right to you. Somebody said Ruger. Bernard Fox has a Ruger too. Your hand would swallow it up, Wolf. It says here, is that for Patreon members only? Another thing too, if you are a Patreon member and you're at a $30 tier, here's what I'm going to do for you. Okay, on a regular ticket, if you can't get a VIP ticket, on a VIP ticket, we will literally. How about we do this for the $30 tier members? I don't know. I've been thinking about this. I think if you're a $30 tier member, and you've been a $30 tier member for at least a month, we'll say a month, I'll give you $25 off of a VIP ticket, and I'll give you $20 off of a regular ticket. How about that? That's only fair.
Yeah.
And how you can do that is if you buy the ticket, you come to the conference, show me on your phone, say, hey, look, I'm a member, a $30 tier member, and I will literally exchange it for $25 worth of merchandise, or I'll give you $25 cash in your hand. That's if you're a $30 tier member. That will give you some incentive, and it's another perk for being a $30 tier member of the Patreon. I think it's only fair that we could do that for you, besides giving you the swag. And I don't mind giving you the swag as long as you wear it. As long as you go out and you read the book, you enjoy it, and you go out and you wear it. And remember, I'm going to be unveiling my books at the conference. And so, you can get my books there at the conference. If you are a $30 tier member, and from as soon as you sign up, if you're at least a month, you come to the conference and you can tell me, hey, I am a $30 tier Patreon member. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to give you a free copy of my book. Is that fair? And I'll give you money back on the price of your ticket. So $30 tier, it's got its perks. It's got a lot of perks. Not only do you get all the cool swag, not only do you get T-shirt and 2 books, but on top of everything else, I'm going to give you one of my books, and I'm going to give you a discount on your ticket. I'll give you $25 back on it. Crazy Eddie. See, Karen remembers. Karan, is that Karan or Karen? Crazy Eddie. That's a deal, right? That's a good deal. Ask Wolf about the secret handshake. Yeah, me and Lyle have a secret handshake now. We just kind of made it up as we went along. We're like, hey, they're talking about it on Facebook, so I guess we better come up with one. We were at the last conference. We were like, how do we do this? And Ken came up and was like, and we were like, no, dude. You can't be part of the handshake club. Sorry, dude. So, folks, if Ken Gerhardt tries to come to you and do a secret handshake, he doesn't know it. It's only me, Barton, David, and Lyle. And we're thinking about letting in Adam and definitely Ron, because Ron Moorhead. Ron Murphy, you can't do it yet. You and DA and Ken and all y'all got to wait. You got to wait till next year to get the handshake. Okay? Sorry, man. We can only induct so many members per year. All right?
We have a quota.
We have a quota, yeah.
The password still works, though.
There's a password, too. If you guys can guess the password, you get everything for free. Free tickets, free everything.
It's not Rumpelstiltskin.
It's not Rumpelstiltskin. It's not Rumpelminskin.
It's not really even a word you can pronounce, but if you can say it, then we'll give it everything to you.
It's the one from, what is it, The Evil Dead? Clactu. He gets it wrong. I kind of said it. Anyways, folks, I just want you to come to the conference. This isn't about making money. I didn't make money last year. I lost $3,000. Could have been worse. I'm predicting I'm probably going to lose my ass this year. Sorry for the bad language, but I don't care. I just want you to come to the conference. I want you to have fun. I want you to leave. If I won the lottery, or if I wasn't losing accounts left and right, I'd tell everybody just come for free. Just show up. Just get there. But I got to pay speakers and all kinds of other stuff. Pray for me, guys. I just lost another account today. I am bleeding financially with this. I don't know what I'm doing. Maybe I'm going to have to just go into another business. This paranormal roundtable thing would just hurry up and
Ghost massages.
take off. There you go. If it would just take off, then I could just quit security. I'm just so done, tired of it. Clever Conquistador says, I'll buy a VIP ticket if you let me ride up there with y'all. I can meet y'all in Austin. Where do you live? Hit me up. Hit me up on Messenger. We'll talk. Because I think Chris Clough's going to ride with us too. We'll have 2 or 3 vehicles. Loki, you're going to go with us this year. We need you and Starscream to be security. Y'all bounce everybody. Grow your beard out, though, so you look more intimidating. You won't look so nice. Yeah, and so, yeah, Starscream always shows up, does the security. Anyways, guys, thanks for tuning in. Congratulations to the winners. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Tell your parents, your friends, your girlfriend, your boyfriend. Make your kids listen to the show if they're of age. You're like, oh, you're going to go out with your friends? Really? PRT is on. What do you think? This is Friday. Sit down. Shut up. I don't care if you're 18 or 19. Shut up and watch the show. If you got to threaten them with the chocolate, you got to do what you got to do, man.
They want to go out to club and club in the back of the
I want
head.
to go with my friend. Bring
back.
your friends inside, and they sit down and shut up and watch the show too, right? Like a Mexican mom. Siéntate, cállate la boca. Mira. Wolf, aquí, on the TV.
Quiet as wolf stories.
Yeah, quiet. Ahora. Now, right there, look. That's what you tell them.
And congratulations to all the winners. But if you guys didn't win and you still want to, and this applies to anybody, Doug, make sure to go onto the Facebook group and make a little comment after we post the show so that you can have a chance to win something, you know. And this, as I said, applies to anybody. It's not something, if you want something before and we like your comment in the Facebook group, you can still win again. There's no restriction on that. I think that restriction is really just for the show. But thank you, everybody, man.
All right, guys. I'll see you. Flash.